dive with limit, 5.8 total degree of difficulty of the dives being done today. We're looking at Debatin from Italy, 103B, forward 1.5 somersault.
That was a dive that we were going to see a lot of in the first round, a forward 1.5 somersault pike. And this dive requires a lot of timing and necessarily a lot of height because it's a very simple dive. So the diver needs to time the takeoff perfectly so that the springboard can assist him in going up in the air. And that dive went out a little too far rather than up. You trade height for distance on the springboard.
The scores we will be seeing today, especially, will be scored from 0 to 10, as you see the scores there for the Italian diver. We will probably see scores, don't you think, Cynthia, in the upper ranges. The very good range is considered 8.5 to 10. The good range is considered 6.5 to 8.
Yeah, I think, Steve, we're going to see a lot of 8s and above in the first 3 rounds because they are compulsory dives. They're the dives that demonstrate control. This is a back dive.
This is Joachim.
Joachim's from Sweden. He just did a back dive in a tight position. It was a nice dive. It could have been higher off the springboard. Now, he goes up in the air and touches his toes and looks back for the entry and does a very good job of controlling the dive. But there really wasn't anything real special about the dive. 7, 7.5. An 8 from the Australian judge. But I think we're going to see a lot of high scores. Because I think there'll be a lot of dives done that are actually better than the one Joachim just did.
If you look at Dario Defazio from Venezuela, who's going to do the back dive pike. These are the easier dives, the dives that stress this basic skill level of diving.
That's right. We talk so much about control in the compulsory dives. This is where they display that control. This is a back dive pike. Now, that wasn't a bad dive, but it was a little bit jerky as it came out of the pike position. It should be smoother and pressed out of the pike if he wants those high scores. Now we see him take off and lean back just a little bit too far. It looked like he took off with a little arch in his back, and this is a pike dive, so there's no arch in this dive, or shouldn't be. And the come-out will affect his scores. It just wasn't very smooth.
There are the scores for Defazio from Venezuela. The United States has had a tradition of dominating the springboard event. Since 1908, they've won every gold medal with the exception of 4 Olympic Games. So it's been a long history, the longest history of all diving dominance. And as we look at Kent Ferguson preparing to do his first dive for the United States, he's going to do the back dive pike, a 1.8 degree of difficulty.
There's a real good example of his toe point, his stretch, his gracefulness. You can see the springboard flexes very easily, and the balance is so important because of the flex that the springboard has when it goes down and up. It's very tapered at the end, allows the diver to go way up in the air. Look at that beautiful stretch. Just one touch past vertical on the entry, but really pretty dive.
Interesting scores, 6.5 to 8 from the judges. The high and low, of course, in diving, as we've been saying all along, are eliminated. David Bedard from Canada, making his Olympic appearance here on the springboard event, doing the back dive straight.
Nice dive from David Bedard. He has nice layout positions, those straight positions. That's why he chooses to do them straight instead of pike. And he hits the position right away at the top of the dive with that set, the arm set. He holds that as long as he can and then closes up to the water.
7, 6.5. Cynthia, you know, we talk about the importance of positioning in the order for judges' scores. That comes to play more in the finals, I realize. But how about now? The judges are just now looking at the earlier dives as we look at Evan Stewart from Zimbabwe doing their dives. Do you expect the scores to be somewhat conservative early on?
Well, I think if we see a real spectacular dive, they'll open up with some 8s, but until we see that first spectacular dive, yes, that's going to be the case. Now, that may be a good example of the 8 and the 8.5. I thought that was a magnificent dive. He had really good balance, and his distance from the springboard was perfect. Some of these men thus far in the competition have gone out a little bit too far in the middle of the pool, but it's going to start opening up now because we're going to see some dives that actually...
There they are. Very good. Interesting story about Evan Stewart. His father is an Olympic judge. He's been judging the Olympics the past 2 times, and here he has his son diving, and he unfortunately doesn't have the opportunity to judge his son. Tripanov now from Bulgaria doing his first dive, inward 1.5 somersault pike.
Now, I saw the springboard really rocking before he left. Obviously, the springboard is different from the platform in that it does have spring to it, and this dive could have a deduction because of what I would call excessive rocking before the takeoff. The divers may seem to be moving a little bit, but he actually looked like he was priming the board, and I think that's the reason why he might have received less than 7 in the dive.
40.95 total points for that one dive.
You see that wheel, that fulcrum in the middle of the diving board, that allows the diving board to be more flexible the further back the wheel is put, or less flexible if it's rolled up towards the front of the diving board.
Edwin Junjans from Holland, back dive pike.
It's the diver's choice where to put that wheel, the fulcrum, and most divers would like to put it as far back as they possibly can because that would allow them to go up in the air higher if they could manage to control that amount of flexibility from the springboard.
I remember Greg Louganis was the first male diver I had ever seen who put the fulcrum all the way back on back takeoffs, and that seemed to set a bit of a trend in diving from that point on.
He really had, I think Sandy Reed was very instrumental in coaching him to put that wheel all the way back and try and achieve the maximum spring and maximum height off of the springboard. I think he was a master of that. And now all the other men are trying to do the same thing.
Well, this is an historic occasion for Spain, the first appearance of a Spanish diver, Jose Miguel Gil.
He's really a nice type of personality. He's fun to be around. This dive is a little bit too far away from the diving board. I think he's a little nervous and he's hiding in front of this crowd. The first Spanish entry in the diving event. It's a good dive, but we're going to hear some whistles. I'm hearing them right now. The Spanish aren't necessarily happy with the scores that Jose Gil has received.
7.5. Those aren't bad scores necessarily.
They're not bad. We may hear some whistles.
Just as long as they don't start throwing things, we'll be okay.
We may need a booth here rather than an umbrella.
That's right. Tom Leonda now doing his back dive pike. Chinese diver we've spoken about.
Now there's a dive that's definitely going to be 8.5 and above. He's had a tough time because he used to double bounce the springboard going backwards so much in those 2 Olympic Games where he was runner-up to Greg Louganis. He double bounced the springboard, and he has learned how to control that. He did not double bounce here, which was really a great improvement for him, so there will be no deduction for his feet leaving the board before he was ready to jump up the air and dive. And he really has a nice vertical entry going into the water.
Well, the highest scores thus far, 45.36 points, will put him into first. Of course, that position is going to be challenged with the rest of the field, but that certainly is a high mark for the first round to shoot for. Dimitri Salpin now from the
lower than the platform. It's only 3 meters off the water, and of course the 10 meter is almost 33 feet off the water. And he has the ability to not only go in the water without making a splash, but that loud rip sound, and it's very dramatic at times. And the judges would like to say they don't respond to that, but I think sometimes they do. That was a nice dive. You saw a little bit of feet over on the entry, a little over rotation, but a nice solid dive to start with. Probably not 8, 8.5, but in the 7, 7.5, maybe an 8 or 2.
Southern is one of the young rising stars in the unified team. He's 18 years old. He's been a junior champion in the world and has done very well, and now is making his mark certainly at the senior level with his appearance here at the Olympic Games. Scores were 7.5 to 8 for Southern. Those are certainly good scores, 36.48 points. We'll rank him presently at 9, but again, the top 3 dives, the first 3 rounds, there's a total degree of difficulty limit, so we'll gauge more as we go a little closer to that 3rd round. This is Kozdransky from Poland.
Now that was an interesting way to start off the contest. He chose to do a forward 2.5 somersault pike. We're seeing very simple dives, a back dive, a front 1.5, and this is a 2.5 somersault instead. So he's gaining a little degree of difficulty here. It's 2.4, but he'll back off in the next 2 rounds on his degree of difficulty, so he stays under that maximum of 5.8 in the first 3 rounds.
5.5 and 6, so he really needed higher scores than that if he's loading all of his degree of difficulty up on that first dive. Mark Rourke now from Canada, a back dive pike, 1.8.
I think Mark is very good at his tightness in the takeoff. He's quick to the touch, and I like his tightness, his feet and his legs. He really concentrates on not giving up any points by loosening as he goes through the air. Some of the divers, after they leave the springboard and make their touch on a back dive, they loosen up, but he doesn't.
7.5 to 8 for the Canadian diver Mark Rourke. As now we look at Craig Vaughn from South Africa. This is the first time that the South Africans have made an Olympic appearance in a while, and certainly the first time we've seen a South African in diving.
So it's really nice to see them back. I saw them at my first Olympics in 1972, and it was so unfortunate when they weren't allowed to dive. I thought it was a real crime, but now the Republic of South Africa has a representative here, Craig Vaughn. He needs a little more toe point as he left the diving board. He stretches his feet after that, but coming off the diving board, he's dive in a straight position.
And that toe point did cost him some points with the judges, 6, 6.5 for Craig Vaughn. Christian Styren now from Norway doing the back dive pike.
And Christian has gone to school in the United States at the University of Texas. Been training there for quite some time.
Mike Brown, of course, is the coach at the University of Texas, and he is here coaching the platform entry from the United States, Matt Scotty.
Christian's very smooth. He's pleasing to watch because he doesn't make any jerky, fast movements. The divers want to have quick reflexes, but they want to display smoothness and grace also. You saw his feet, one in front of the other, a little bit on the takeoff and the touch. That may cost him a half a point. Some of the sevens and
6.5 to 7, 35.10 for total scores for that single dive. And now, Nikki Stuykovic, and we all have seen Nikki Stuykovic in many different Olympics. His first Olympic appearance was in 72, so this is his 5th Olympic Games. He's going to do the back dive pike, 1.8 degree of difficulty.
Nicky was one of the sensations of the 1972 Olympics. going in the water without a splash first became noticeable and started to be in vogue. You see, Nicky is very muscular. He has beautiful long lines. He's had struggle to keep his endurance up during this long contest.
Now, strength is going to become a factor as we get into the optional rounds later this afternoon as well. Now, young Hempel from Germany. He's doing a back dive in the pike position, 1.8 degree of difficulty.
Jan Hempel, of course, is much better known for his platform diving. Incidentally, he's been one of the divers to defeat Tom Yanda in the past, as well as Mark Lindsay and Kent Ferguson, but that was off the platform. So I'm interested to see how he'll perform on the springboard. That jump was spectacular, way up in the air over the springboard. He has his ankle pegs. I'm not sure what his critical is, but it's allowed to put tape on your ankles. The judges do not deduct for that.
7 and 7.5. The single 8 was eliminated in the diving calculation. Jorge Mondragon now from Mexico doing the forward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
Really caught the springboard well, and that's kind of a diving slang term, but it means that his timing and his rhythm were very good on the end of the board with his feet. He lands and really lets the board push him up into the air. He swings his arms at just the right time to go way up in the air. Let's watch it. That's the hang time right there before he lands on the diving board, and it's very critical that you not move your arms or your feet until your feet contact the board, and then you swing your arms up over your head. He did that very well.
Hang time Michael Jordan would be envious of, possibly. 7.5 to 8 for the score for Jorge Mondragon, and that's an excellent start for him. And now we go to Alexei Kogalev, who's a diver representing Brazil here. I'm sorry, representing Belgium here. Inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
And Alexei actually used to be diving for the Soviet Union a couple of years ago. It was a pretty good dive. I like the entry best of all. I thought he put his head down a little bit on the takeoff and didn't allow him to go up in the air as high as possible. Look, his head position right down. It's a nice tight pike, but I think if he kept his head up, he would go up a little bit higher. He certainly is vertical on the entry.
Scores 7, 7.5, and that will move him into the second ranking at this time of the contest. Jürgen Richter now from Austria, the second entry from Austria, is doing a back dive in the pike position.
Jürgen was a little slow getting to the touch off the diving board. When you're doing these compulsory dives, you want to be very sharp and crisp getting to those touches right there. He should have been a little quicker getting those legs up. He almost starts to fall before he touches his toes. You really want to
The score is 6.5 to 7. Davide Lorenzini now from Italy. This is the second entrant from Italy. He's doing the forward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
Well, Davide actually missed the three-quarter dive because he arched as he went in the water. And the judges really have their work cut out for them in the compulsory rounds because they have to pick out these details and deduct for them accordingly. It's almost more difficult to judge the compulsory. There's that arch right there that I was talking about. But it's almost more difficult to judge the compulsory than the optional dive. He received 6 big arch over. He went into the water.
Fernando Platas now from Mexico. Inward 1 1/2 somersault in the tuck position, a 1.9 degree of difficulty.
Fernando has a great big bandage on his left wrist, and he actually had surgery not too long ago in California performed by an associate of Dr. Ben Rubin, who is here with the U.S. team. But it hasn't really stopped him from diving springboard very effectively. He has curtailed his platform career temporarily. You see that big bandage. This dive is just a little fast. He over-rotated just in there on it. It's a nice jump.
6.5 and 2/7 for the young diver from Mexico. Isao Yamagishi now from Japan. Forward 1 1/2 somersault pike, 1.6.
Zhao had trouble with that takeoff. He was way over the end of the diving board, so he soared out. Just being a little bit over the end of the springboard can have drastic effects because the springboard is going to automatically push a diver out just because of the nature of the springiness of the board and the fulcrum being set in the middle. It's actually physical. But if you're not in good balance, a little bit back with your chest on the springboard, you really sail out in the middle of the field.
Certainly those scores reflect that flaw in the dive. Philippe Duvernay now from France. Forward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
Let that dive short of vertical. You don't really want to do a compulsory dive and go short because the nature of compulsories are that they're easier to begin with. So not rotating sufficiently on a compulsory dive may have very negative effects with the judging. You'll see he's going to go in the water and he keeps that pike a little bit bent at his hips and the splash goes back towards the springboard.
And sixes again. It's a score that we're kind of seeing a lot of from the judges at this point of the contest. Delarius Cinco now. That dive pike.
Valera has these long lines. He's very thin, and he has the ability to go into water like a knife. He's a good platform diver as well. That's certainly one of his assets. There, he showed that entry very well. He just looks like he cuts right through the water without really rippling it at all. And nice touch off the board. He looks back, stays very straight, doesn't arch his back, and that's really nice form. You really don't want to see a lot of arch in diving, particularly when a dive is listed in the pike position as this one is. And that's beautiful. This diving board as well. About 1 to 3 feet, good distance.
And the judges certainly like those scores. That dive, 7.5 to 8. And Stutsenko from the unified team is off to a good start. Now this is Keita Kineto from Japan, the second diver from Japan. Forward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
Well, once again, the judges have to pick apart these compulsory dives in order to be able to differentiate between a 6.5, 7, and 7.5. You have to have a keen eye, and this dive goes out. You see him lean a little bit off the board. They should look close to the diving board as they take off because the angle of trajectory will result in them moving farther away as they go through the air. And he was a little bit too far out when he left the diving board.
6 and 6.5 for the Japanese diver. Bob Morgan now from Great Britain doing the forward dive in pike position, a 1.5 degree of difficulty.
Well, that was one of the best dives we've seen in the first round. I learned this dive first when I started diving, and it was called a jackknife back then. I'm not going to tell you what year it was, but it's really a beautiful dive when done well, and Robert Morgan does it beautifully here. That touch in the pike position, come out and control that entry without hitting an arch in his back. He really has good legs to do this well.
Well, when Cynthia was doing the jackknife, the wooden board and the cocoa matting were not really being used at that time. They had aluminum board.
Now, be careful. There were no Duraflexes around yet. It's starting to really date me here, Steve.
Simon McCormick from Australia, the back dive pike 1.8.
But I did dive on Duraflexes during my career. Simon hesitates in a touch. He holds on to it too long, and the judges won't let that go by because they're real aware that the touch should be clean and crisp. And look at the way he holds on there. He touches his toes and holds on to them just a little bit. And I think that indicates that he's afraid he's not going to make the total rotation, the half somersault is required. There'll be a half a point to a point deduction for that.
And indeed there are 5.5, 6.5, 30.78 points. Now, Mark Lindsay from the United States. Forward, 1 1/2 somersault pike, 1.6.
Mark starts out with a very good first dive. He's the World Cup champion, as opposed to Tim Ferguson, who's the world champion. And of course, Tom Leander, the runner-up, the Greg Louganis in the last two Olympics. And Mark says, I didn't come here to take second. He likes to know where he is in the contest. He'll watch the scoreboard. This is a great dive. I'd like to see him stretch his feet a little bit more, but he'd like to learn how to stretch his feet a little bit more. Perfect timing. His feet are right on the end of the springboard. That allows him to go all the way up. The amplitude there is possible. Amplitude. He lines up and grab his hands. He's very good at ripping, going in the water without making a splash.
It's interesting as we look at those scores, which are very good. The World Cup format is optionals only, and that really is his forte, the optional dive. And the World Championship format is more akin to what's being done here at the Olympic Games. Lan Wei from China's next diver, doing a back dive in pike 1.8.
Long way jumped up in the air beautifully up over the diving board. I think he could have touched in a tighter pike when he did touch his toes, giving him a little bit more control. But watch this jump. It's going to go up above that 5-meter platform that we're looking at. The tips are above the 5-meter. Boy, that really indicates some smooth timing and rhythm. He's right with the springboard. He's got it rolled all the way back so that he can go all the way up in the air. It's at its most flexible place when the fulcrum is rolled back like that. Just didn't control this as well as he could, or that might have been 8.5 and 9 if he had gotten down a little bit more vertically.
Albin Kielot now from Germany.
Albin's probably going to be in the hunt any way you look at it. I don't know that he's medal potential until we see how the optional divers are going, because he just doesn't miss dives. I really enjoy watching Albin dive. It's nice to watch in the air, and this is a nice front 1.5 somersault pike. He just missed his hands going in the water a little bit. He really needs to grab them for that lip. But you see he reaches over his head on the takeoff. Very important. His head was up on the takeoff. Now look at this. He's trying to grab. Oh, he misses. Doesn't quite get his hands all the way up together as he goes in the water.
Albin Kielot making his third Olympic appearance. Dived in the 88 games and was very much in contention for a medal there into the final rounds. Michael Murphy from Australia, forward 1 1/2 somersault pike 1.6.
This is a nice takeoff. He got his arms caught a little bit behind him when he came out of this dive, and he couldn't line up to go in the water vertically. But he does a good job of getting off the springboard effectively, feet right on the end. I'm going to talk about those feet being on the end of the board a lot, because that is what allows the diver to get the maximum height out of the springboard. but that grab for the water was ineffective, and he washed by on this, and he really didn't have to.
Scores 7, 7.5, and currently that will rank him at 25th in the order, diver from Australia. So after the first round, Tomlianda from China, Kogolev from Belgium, Stewart from Zimbabwe, Kozdransky from Poland, Stutsenko from the unified team, and Trifonov round out the top 6. Ferguson and Lonway are tied for 7th. Alexanderson from Sweden and Bedard from Canada are 10th. An 11th place tie between Jans and Mark Rourke of Canada.
Not too many surprises in that first round. You don't get too excited about anything because we're just jockeying right now for position, and the compulsory dives carry different degrees of difficulty in the first 3 rounds. So,
well, as they're starting to set up now for this beginning of the second round, we want to remind everyone that Mary Ellen Clark yesterday, the wonderful surprise from the United States, won a bronze medal in the women's platform finals, and we hope you had a chance to join us for that contest. It certainly was exciting and inspiring to see that. And in the next session later on today, we're going to have Mary Ellen with us. She's going to come into our broadcast booth here and join us for some diving, and we'll get her impressions on her win yesterday and get more information on what made it work for her.
my concern here is that she might not be back from celebrating. I hope she's going to be with us because I know I'd be celebrating, and almost her entire family, of course, excluding her father, who's at home recovering from quadruple bypass surgery.
Well, she may not be back from celebrating, but I'm sure the smile is still there.
Well, she's pleasant no matter how you look at it, so if she gets here, I know we'll have a good time.
So as we begin the second round now, Alessandro Di Botone from Italy, the inward 1 1/2 somersault pike, 2.1 degree of difficulty.
You know, he is 21 years old, and this is his first appearance in an Olympic Games. I would think it would be somewhat intimidating to be the first diver in the Olympic springboard contest, the first event to be contested for men in the Olympic Games. But he's doing a very good job. That was a beautiful inward 1 1/2 somersault pike. It wasn't the cleanest entry, but it was very nice.
6.5 and 7s. Joachim Anderson now from Sweden. His second dive, the back dive pike, for 1.9 degree of difficulty.
Joachim does a nice jump up into his reverse dive. Missed the entry a little bit. I think if he put his head back a little more, he might go in the water cleaner.
As we're waiting for the scores here, we have another guest who's joined us in the broadcast booth. This is the 1972 Olympic gold medalist on springboard, Mickey King Hogue, and also the president of the United States Diving. Welcome, Mickey. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Steve and Cynthia.
Well, Mickey, you're one of my heroes for a number of different reasons. But I'd like you to comment on some of these dives because I feel like that the time that we dived, 72, and of course you retired after that, and I went on a little bit longer. The dives certainly have changed a little bit, but it's still the Olympic Games. So I'd like to hear your comments on some of these dives.
Well, this is Dario De Fazio we were just looking at, Mickey.
Yes, and it's been very fun to watch the Olympics change in terms of personalities, but not change in terms of what it's all about, what you have to do to win.
And what are those elements, Mickey, that never change?
Well, certainly grace and beauty is something we always look for. There's a lot of acrobatics been added in the springboard, particularly. But we add acrobatics. We still want to keep that grace, beauty, strength, and the dynamic of a dive needs to impress the judges.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're very close naturally to the U.S. team, and we're looking at Kent Ferguson coming up here. What is it going to take for him, do you think, to be a medalist here?
Let's watch him dive here. as that Mary Ellen set the pace for the rest of the team. Look at him step down out of that hurdle and set the dive up. It looks like it's going to be a front jump, brings his legs up beautifully. There's the grace and beauty and the strength. A little bit over, look like, but I still think that's an 8.5 dive. Look at that. Touches and tight. Best whole point in the contest, I think, don't you?
I agree completely. I think it's just so pleasing to watch Kent dive.
The judges were pleased as well. Mickey, you're right on. 8.5 for that dive. Excellent scores, and keep that momentum going. David Bedard from Canada.
Yesterday we were worried that Mary Ellen had a bad draw diving early in the contest. I think she proved us all wrong there, and I think Kent is setting the stage too with some good strong dives from the beginning, warming the judges up to give those 8.
So in these qualifying rounds, it probably isn't as important to dive later on in the contest as it might be in the finals.
Actually, I think what we have to do now is establish our dominance in these early rounds so that the judges know we're here to play hardball and that we're not going to just dive kind of to make the qualifying cut, but we're diving to impress them with the fact that we can do these dives every time we stand up on the board, whether it's a prelims or a final.
Evan Stewart now from Zimbabwe.
Same dive as Kent, and you can see the difference. Quite frankly, out a little bit too far, not as high as Kent, and a little bit what I call swinging in the dive. Nice dive, but not nearly as classy and as mechanically correct.
I find that the elegance plays such a big part in Kent's diving, and Evan Stewart certainly is getting some wonderful experience here. He's young. He's not even college age yet, but yet competing in the Olympic Games for Zimbabwe. What is it like when you compete in the Olympics for the first time? What was your experience, Mickey?
It's a total snow job. You are so caught up in the excitement and the adventure and the intrigue and the pageantry.
Trifonov now from Bulgaria doing his second dive. Mickey, let me ask you then, that makes Mary Ellen's medal even more significant, doesn't it?
I think so. I have to say, I thought she was at a disadvantage in a couple of ways. First of all, coming in, again, as we look at this dive and doing the same dive Kent did and using him as the model, if you will, very easy to separate here the class of a Clint Ferguson and these Kent and these divers who are not in his league.
Right. Over-rotated on his reverse dive, and it was pretty obvious to the judges. I talked about how picky they have to get in the compulsories because there's little details that they have to pick apart on the easier dives to differentiate the scoring. This is Edwin Jongjans from the Netherlands, and he's doing the same dive.
Real high, it's a little bit jerky, not quite the toe point that we like to see. Of course, Edwin has dived in the United States and has dived very similar as we do because of that influence he's gotten diving in college here. Now, his distance isn't too bad, but in slow motion you can't tell. In regular motion, that just was not a fluid dive. Watch it here as he starts to go over. You can see him pull underwater to bring it back straight up and down.
Edwin was another diver who dived at the University of Miami. A lot of the international divers do wind up competing for the University of Miami. And the applause
And of course the University of Arizona as well.
Yes. I knew you were going to get that in.
Let's just say they get attracted to the Sun Belt.
That's right. Jose Miguel Gil from Spain, his second dive and a popular diver here.
Pretty dive, and again, I think we expect to see in this early round that everyone's going to be in the hunt. There's the separation won't start happening for a while. A lot of similar-looking dives, but as you sit here in person watching it, they do separate themselves just by merit of the little things. The height may be a little stronger in the better divers. The threat, the personal style that the diver adds himself is something that's not coachable. It's just there or it's not there.
Of course, Jose's going to be very popular. We saw that the crowd booed the judges on the first round for him, but it was certainly fair. The judges were doing a good job.
What's your assessment of Tom Leonda here as we look at his reverse dive pike?
impressed with his back dive, his first dive. Let's see if he comes in. Oh, boy. Now, he missed that dive, folks. He was easily 2 feet higher than anybody in the contest. He is explosive off the board. In fact, the dynamics of his diving are clear in terms of stepping. Like how he steps down, don't you? And touches. Now, a little crimp. I think that's got a crimp in it. Now, watch this. That dive is over, folks.
Tried to save it, though, didn't he? Tried to bend his knees and pull back to vertical.
I think it's almost more of a rescue than a save.
Mickey, you're very good at this. You're seeing those little things, and I talked about those crimps a lot yesterday. I think some of the Chinese divers really need to work on getting rid of those crimps, those bent knees.
Yes, that's clearly nice from the upper view how he pulled back. Very obvious looking down.
And the judges did
for them.
6 for the judge from the Netherlands.
I might add that didn't have a big splash. It's what we call it's an over rip. He still managed to keep the water down on his splash, but he was clearly not what we want to see up and down line.
Salton now from the unified team he's going to break the string and do an inward.
Nice to see some variety, isn't it? Remember, Cynthia, when we dived, you had to do the dives in a specific order, so you would see 38 front dive, 38 back dive, 38 reverse dive.
It sounds a little monotonous.
Yeah, well, I think that we put some judges to sleep, except, of course, when you and I were on the board.
Of course, Mickey. Thank you for that compliment. But this is a nice dive. It reaches up over his head before he leaves the diving board. That really sets him up to be able to go in the water straight. And a lot of coaches talk about that. Wherever you start, you can expect to end up as a little bit more splash than sometimes the judges would like to see, but it's a solid dive.
Well, we have in the broadcast booth, we almost have the entire 72 women's Olympic team. We're missing Janet Ely. She was the 3rd member of the team, and all 3 of you dived both events, 3-meter and platform.
That's right. We miss you, Janet. Where are you?
We do.
That's what I would call a nice little dive. It just, was not dynamic. Now, I'm going to say the judges are going to be in the 5.5, 6 range, if I'm reading their minds. But he's not getting the push. He probably doesn't weigh 100 pounds all wet. But because of that, you can't get the board. And he's up against the big boys.
Kostrowski from Poland weighs 125 pounds. So 6.5 from the judges for the Polish diver. Now Mark Rourke from Canada.
Ricky, I'd really like you to expand a little bit more on what it was like in your first Olympics. You said something that was pretty poignant about how it just sort of knocks your socks off. And is it difficult to stay focused without those distractions?
No doubt of it, no doubt of it. And I think what really plays in the Olympic experience is for your first Olympics, is where your event is in relation to the Olympic program. If you're early on in the show, you haven't got a chance, I don't think, to get over the excitement of what it's all about. Living in the village and seeing some of the famous athletes that you only read about and eating dinner next to a team from Zimbabwe or a team from Malaysia or some country you didn't even know was on the map. All those things catch up to you, and you need time to let that spell out. Now, again, going back to Mary Ellen, that makes her victory even more stunning, as Steve said earlier.
That's right. I can remember how I felt going into the village the first time, and I was starstruck.
This is Craig Vaughn from South Africa. Back dive in the straight position.
Straight being the layout, no bend at the waist or at the knees. CPU difficulty's a little higher. Ooh. Looking at that, not in the camera, but straight on as I am from the booth, I thought he was going to catch his heels there. It'd be interesting from the overhead camera to see how close he looks from that angle.
So you actually thought he was going to maybe put his feet on the diving board?
And see if we can get the...
See how close they actually come?
Yeah, very close.
He was smart. He tightened down and picked them up. They came with him. That was a nice solid dive. Again, his style isn't as dynamic or as exciting. He did a nice layout, but it wasn't the prettiest you've ever seen, and I think that's something that can't be coached.
Well, South Africa is at a disadvantage, being exiled, really, from world competition for so long. Styron now from Norway. Back dive pike.
Actually, it's going to be a reverse dive, until in the pike position.
Pardon me,
going
you're right.
forward
Reverse dive.
and spinning backwards.
Right there, is like a front jump, and then he draws his legs up a little bit over on the end. You'll see a lot of these because this dive is the classic required dive. They can do it in any position, as we saw the layout dive in the back. But I think most of these divers are opting to do it pipe, touch, looks back. A little bit archy. I call that the C curve lineup. Letter C, I tell my divers to go in the letter L, not the letter C.
Just as long as they don't go with the letter M, right, Mickey?
They do that too, though.
Mickey Stokovic now, his second dive is an inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
I suppose you mentioned that he's been quite ill.
Yes, I know
going
he had
into
a
this.
strep throat earlier in the week.
I watched his workout yesterday, and he was struggling a little bit trying to get his sea legs back. But he's a competitor. He's been around since I can remember, and didn't look too sick on that one.
No, his first 2 dives actually have been decent dives, 7.5 dives.
And you know, when you get to this point, and he's been training for this, in a way, he didn't need workouts. All he needed was some maintenance warm-up kind of thing. So that was a pretty dive, and that could keep him in the hunt. I think where it'll take its toll if he's got out of shape, it'll be, of course, in the optional round.
Jan Hempel now from Germany, the reverse dive pike 1.9.
He's one of my favorites, and I would call him more of a favorite on the tower, but one of the few young men in the contest that is doubling. He will be in 2 events. And you see a lot more specialists nowadays, Cynthia, than in our day when you did everything. And
That's right, we were sort of the all-purpose divers, weren't we?
you never considered not doing one event. It's just, to me, it was an opportunity to win more, have an opportunity to win more titles. And one event complements the other.
I agree, and I think that it's difficult to start to events of the Olympic Games, but certainly not impossible. If you like to dive and enjoy the springboard as well as the platform, there's no reason why you shouldn't. Jan Hempel's a good example of that, but this is
Mondragon from Mexico.
Got everybody off their feet.
Oohs and ahs, because we saw our first somersault with twist there, and they liked a more complicated dive. A very
There's the front 1.5. You see how he swings his arms across his chest, checks it right here, and now it's at 1.5 again. Dissected very nicely there, and lost his toes a little bit. Good solid dive. And again, not a lot of separation won't happen these 3 rounds. Do you think?
I don't think they'll separate too much, but I'm surprised that we're not seeing higher scores right now in the compulsories. I thought there would be a lot more 8s and 8.5s and maybe 9s.
Kargalev.
Do you think they might be a little nervous starting out their first contest?
Certainly the women were yesterday on the tower, and they were diving afraid, I thought. I think the men are I'll tell you what I think the problem is there's 38 of them, folks, and that's a long wait between dives. And the object here is to keep from getting stale while you're waiting for your turn. I know the U.S. men were concerned about that, and they're having to kind of settle out for 5 or 6 minutes and rest, and then they have to get psyched back up, get their body pumping and ready for their next trip. But there's a long wait between dives.
Richter from Austria.
And he's doing a reverse dive pipe. A little slow getting to the touch. It kind of looked like he still hadn't woken up yet this morning.
He just fell asleep between this dive and the dive he did before.
And actually, Kent Ferguson commented that it might be up to 30 minutes in between each of his dives because there are actually 32 divers in the contest. And so if we're going a minute a diver, that would be 30 minutes in between rounds. But they sped up a little bit today. Yesterday they were going slower. Today it's about 50 seconds. So it won't be quite that much time, but it's still a long wait. And he's actually reading a book in between dives.
Davide Lorenzini from Italy. Inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
This is going to be a good study in distance from the board. I think a lot of people think the divers support on those reverses and their inwards. When you actually look at it from over the top, as we will in the replay, you'll see that he's really going to be a comfortable distance from the board as he stands backwards and spins inward.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit frightening if you haven't watched a lot of diving. On the takeoff, certainly the diver has to be over the board in order not to be too far out by the time he hits the water. So I've talked about the distance from the board, 1 to 3 feet, probably the most acceptable range, and I would say that was about 1.5 to 2 feet from the board when he passed it. Pretty good dive, a little short maybe.
Low finishing and just got there. Well, they're not going to let us see that overhead view.
Sometimes we get it, maybe sometimes we don't. We mix it up a little bit here. Plata. He's the diver from Mexico that has had the surgery on his wrist just recently, so...
One of the favorites here in terms of personality and popularity. A lot of the Mexican contingent is coming to the pool to support their team. That was a nice dive, a little heavy on the shoulders.
You want the real inside scoop on Plakis? He speaks Chinese, and he and Fu Ming Sha are very close friends.
Well, I know.
You heard it here first.
I know Fu Ming Sha would like to be closer friends with him, and he certainly is a pleasant young man to be around, and he is popular. He's such a fun, upbeat type guy. Of course, it helps that he speaks Chinese.
Yes, it does. I would think so. Yusao Yamagishi from Japan doing the inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
Looks like we're out of the reverse dive round and into the inward round. Of course, it's their own choice what they do, but a lot of them pick the same dive. Ooh, is he high?
Ooh, that was a nice takeoff, wasn't it?
He was way above the board finishing. Very pretty, nice tight legs. They had no crimp there. From the ahead view, now we get the overhead view. Let's see where his distance is. Look how high he is. Now, he's way above the board finishing. As he passes, he's in about your one. He might have been in the 1 foot range, but that's certainly. It never worried me watching it. He was in control the whole way.
Well, I didn't flinch, and I don't think the judges did either. Vicki, why doesn't every country send 2 representatives as they could be allowed to?
Well, quite frankly, the FEMA, the international governing body for the sport of diving, has put the word out that they want the contingents to really look closely, and if they don't have what they consider a contender, to not send them. And I think that the idea being that we don't want to have 40, 45 divers in the event. Some of them feel like with the expense it costs to get here and the credentialing and all that they need to be sure they only send contenders. So
we shouldn't be surprised that these are such high-quality divers.
no,
throughout
absolutely
the
not.
contest.
Absolutely not. And I must admit that this year the depth in the fields is even deeper than it was in '88. After you drop below the 10th diver in the Olympics, usually you're finding divers that wouldn't even make our cut in our national. But this year, I've seen more depth to the field on all boards. Oh, is he stuck, folks?
Yeah, that was...
Jacinko from the United team doing his reverse dive.
Now, he definitely has the long look. Let's watch him as he steps down. Right here, he's set up beautifully, but watch. Now, by stuck, I mean he's hanging on, he's waiting. He should have been way out of the dive before then. If you've ever been stuck in a dive, you know what stuck means. It's hard to describe to someone who's never felt it, but he didn't rotate to the up and down position, had to hold his pike long.
And that's probably why he received that 5.5 for the dive. That was his speed.
I think so. I think it takes a little more vertical diving, certainly, as the trends have been set here. Here's Keita Kaneto from Japan, inward 1 1/2 somersault pike. And both of you may be familiar with his parents.
I dived against his mom.
That's right.
So did I. What a wonderful person she is.
Special. I've never seen her at any of the games lately. Dad's here every year.
Nice dive.
So he has some diving genes, certainly, in his makeup, and is doing very well diving both events here.
Well, I love this reach up over the board and his jump. Look, he passes above the board with
Morgan from Great Britain, inward 1 1/2 somersault pike, 2.1 degree of difficulty.
Well, he's now picking up his degree of difficulty. He did a low degree of difficulty dive in the first round, 1.5. And this one and the next one are above 2.0, so he has a chance now to really make his move in the first 3 rounds. But that dive didn't cut it in terms of distance.
Right. Now that one was far outside the limit and it was way too far back, and therefore was short on the bottom.
So we're not using slang when we say far out about this dive, are we?
Although that might have been a popular term back in '72 when you guys were on the team, right?
Thanks, Steve.
And the scores for Morgan's dive, 5.5 to 7. Some discrepancy there with the judges. Moving along now to the Australian entry, Simon McCormick doing the reverse dive pike, 1.9.
Well, I like that dive.
I did too. Now, I don't know if they're going to buy it. It's a little soft on the end. He didn't really put the deep, hard grip on it. But see, that was what I'd call a fluid dive.
It was nice. I think he's moving out just a little bit. He may be on the outside limits of that 3 feet in terms of the distance. He might be about 4 feet from the diving board. And I think he's better known as a 1-meter diver, actually.
Sevens is going to keep you in the hunt, but it's not going to separate the top from the middle. We need 8.
Here's Mark Lindsay. He's doing his reverse dive in the straight position. This is a 2.0 degree of difficulty.
Popular with the crowd, waiting for them to quiet before he decides to make his move towards the end of the board.
Did you see how far back he was? He was at least 3 to 4 inches from the end of the board.
Now, what does that mean? If he doesn't get on the end of that board, maybe, how does that affect you?
He's going to react by pushing it out a little, I think. And I hope they show us an overhead. You can see it there a little bit if you're looking, but he pushed that dive out. Now he's got to play with it a little. See, from the ankles, he was going, good. Let's see. Get your ruler out and see how close that was. Yeah, an easy 3 inches back.
Right. You really want your feet on the end of the diving board so that you can gain all the height that the board allows you.
And then you can see it suddenly pull back.
Now look at these scores, 2 6.5s, 2 8s, and everything else in between. Of course, the high and the low is eliminated, and those scores added together multiplied times the degree of difficulty. Now Lon Wei from China. He's going to do the reverse diving pike.
Well, that was a big miss.
Yeah,
A big miss from the second Chinese entrant. He went way past vertical and had trouble on the takeoff as well.
This should, if they don't go in the 3 and 4 range, then they did fall asleep.
He lost his feet coming off the diving board. They were separated and way past vertical with his feet on the entry.
Didn't even rescue that one.
Now, there's not a whole lot of compensation you can make here.
He gets to the...
Again,
he's
his feet are
back,
3 inches back from the end again.
Now watch how his feet will come over the top, way past the point of no return.
So he just can't go in vertical on it.
Now, look at that, a 7.
Interesting scores, huh? The Colombian judge scored that 7. The rest of the field 4s and 3.5.
That was in the 3.5, 4 range, folks, in my book.
Kind of a hazy day here at Montjuic Swimming Pool, and the crowd is starting to really fill in on the bleachers with all of the excitement that's happening at the Olympics, and especially at this diving venue yesterday. This is a very popular event at the Olympic Games, and the crowds are always there. How does that impact on the divers?
I have to say very positively. Basically, all these folks are very, the divers are ready to show what they've got in their exhibition type events here. They want to have people to perform in front of.
We have a delay, unusual delay, because the diver, Alvin Keelat, is not on the pool deck. He fell asleep.
We talked about the judges falling asleep. One of the divers fell asleep before his second round dive. Alvin Keelat observing. That shows that he's very relaxed during these preliminaries. I guess he's just not too uptight this morning.
Alvin is going to collect himself, and he's going to do his inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
He's been around. This is not a rookie, I can say.
Well, he woke up pretty quickly.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
a pretty good inward 1
He's a
1/2.
pro.
He is. There's not that big a time change between here and Germany, so I think he's adjusted to the time.
However, there is a siesta tradition here in Spain, so
Oh,
He's
that's
early for his nap, though.
over the board beautifully with his chest, yet backing away with his hips, and there's no movement in that lineup. He went right down. But now there's another toe point, too. One of
Isn't
the
that
better
nice?
ones.
And I think that's interesting, Mickey. The rule book does state that the toes should be pointed. A lot of these divers need to pay a little more attention to that.
7.5 and 8, so the judges are back together on the scoring, so they also collected themselves in that break. Michael Murphy now from Australia, inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
Nice high dive, very solid, deep in his pike. He's got his nose right on his knees. He misses the end, a little soft on the end, didn't get that sharp, clean rip. Watch how deep that pike is.
Isn't that pretty?
The only way you get
there?
deeper is putting letting him put your head through your knees there. He really had a pretty pike.
And when you say soft on the entry, Mickey, does that mean his knees aren't stretched, his legs?
What I mean by that more is that it didn't have the hard rip, the clean entry. It was just, there was more water, more splash.
Okay.
I thought in terms of body alignment, I really thought he was very nice.
As we see, Kent Ferguson is in the lead now after the second round with Tonleonga and Alvin Keelot in second and third. Mark Lindsay is in ninth place, but only 1 point separates first from second at this point, and it is very tight diving as we would expect. We look at the rest of the field. Rounding out, there are 32 divers diving today, and the point spread is 72 points down for the 24th diver, and 85 points for the first diver. 67 points, Lon Way drops all the way to 32nd. We're back here at this beautiful swim stadium, the Montjuic swimming pool for the diving venue, and it's the qualifying rounds of the men's 3-meter springboard. And if you want to take a look at numbers, the most important number to remember is 125 points. At that point, we're estimating that will be the top 12 divers in the field after the first 3 rounds. So the target figure, if you want to position yourself in the finals for the top 12, 125 points. We're looking at Kent Ferguson, who's the leader with 85 points right now. We're joined in the booth today with a special guest, along with Cynthia Potter, of course, our analyst. We have Mickey King Hogue, who is the 72 gold medalist in the 3-meter event and president of United States Diving, and she's been adding her expertise and comments to the dive. Welcome, Mickey. We're very happy you're here.
This is great. Great way to spend the morning here in Spain.
We're looking at Alessandro Dubaton from Italy. He did the forward 1 1/2 somersault with 1 twist, 2.1 degree of difficulty.
He had a lot of trouble with his feet on this takeoff. We're going to see him separate. I've talked about the torque there. It looks like he's a ballet dancer in the air during doing tour jeté or something. He lost his feet, and that'll be a definite deduction. The judges can't miss that. We haven't seen too much separation in the scores yet, and I think that's because of the compulsory dive. Mickey, you were excellent at doing those compulsory dives, the simple dives. What do you think the key is to learning those and doing them well all the time?
Quite frankly, I think it's repetition over and over, and really not repetition in weeks or months, but years and years. And almost all of these divers, even some that are in their first Olympics, have been diving over a period of years, so that that experience carries on and every time you step on to the diving board, you know that you can hit your front required. You know that you're going to get 8s on your back required. You just know it because you've done it so many times that it's automatic to you.
Joachim Anderson now from Sweden doing the forward 1 1/2 somersault, 1 twist.
Another crowd pleaser. They like to see those somersaults or twists, and they're going to get to see a lot of them as we get into the 4th round later on when the optional dives start.
About 1 1/2 there. He wraps the twist and he goes right back, squares out, we call that, and then lines up as if it was finishing as a 1 1/2.
Used to be called a periwinkle back in our time. That was a nickname for that dive. Oh, Mickey, we have to reminisce a little bit sitting here, you know. I don't get the chance that often.
As we're looking at the scores, Joachim asking for some consultation from his coach. And we're looking now at the next diver, Dario DeFazio from Venezuela. He will be doing the inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
Mentioned that it's very hot and humid out here. We see a lot of people fanning themselves. They're definite diving fans. Sit for a couple of hours in this heat. I would say it's probably close to 90 degrees out here when there's not a lot of breeze, and the humidity level is always high here in Spain. Of course, we're right on the Mediterranean.
But I think that's the fun of diving when you're outdoors, to have this great weather. It may not be as great for the fans, but I can guarantee it's great for the divers.
I think it's perfect, too, and I think the divers stay looser. This is a nice inward 1 1/2 somersault pike. It just wasn't quite up to par with the 8, 8.5 range because it was a little short of vertical. Needs a little more energy on that jump and a little more rotation. Here's our leader.
Ken Ferguson, he's going to do the inward 1 1/2 somersault pike as well at 2.1 degree of difficulty.
Here's a chance that judges could compare 2 dives back to back. Having one that was somewhat ho-hum or okay should set Kent up beautifully because he'll do a great one. Oh, boy. Yeah.
What an entry. What an entry. And it was so fluid. The gracefulness of that dive was displayed beautifully in the fluidness. He's chosen to do this dive in the qualifying round. He doesn't do it in the finals, but I can see why he's chosen this. It really is absolutely gorgeous dive. That toe point is impeccable.
Look how high he is, Cynthia. And see where his arms are, where he sets the position
And holds that position.
Yes.
That demonstrates
Defines
control.
it, yes.
Kent now looking toward the scoreboard, and here are the scores. 135.18 points. He certainly is well above the 125 mark and comfortably after the first end of his first 3 rounds.
And of course, that 125 mark is just for the first 3 dives. It won't
Correct.
differentiate who is actually going to be in the finals because 12 divers make the finals after 7 dives today.
It is, though, divided into 2 sessions. The first session is the voluntary dives. The second session are the optional dives. So 125 points is the target if you want to position yourself in the top 12 after this first session. David Bedard, inward 1 1/2 somersault tuck.
It's a nice clean dive.
We haven't seen too many tucks. You see here, he's bending at the waist and at the knees. He has to come out very early to control it.
And I noticed he did not split his tuck, which
He didn't really sell that dive either. It was had the opportunity to be a little higher, a little faster.
You see the official scoreboard, 123 points for Bedard after that dive. Stewart from Zimbabwe, he is also doing the same dive, the inward 1 1/2 somersaults. Stewart was 11th after the second round.
Now, this is the same dive, but it's in a different position. I think that a lot of times we think we're seeing 2 different dives. It's actually the same dive in inward 1 1/2, same number of somersaults, but it's pike position instead of tuck. And that was actually far out once again in the pike position. It was too far away from the diving board. He pushed his hips back, and he knows it. He knows it when he gets out.
Have you mentioned that his dad coaches him and that his dad's also a judge? We talked about Pinyoto, and so there are a couple father-son combinations here.
That's right, and of course his father won't be judging when he's in the
I'm
contest.
glad you did remind us of that.
121.20 points for Stewart from Zimbabwe after 3 rounds. Trifonov now from Bulgaria. He's doing the back dive pike. He was 23rd after the second round.
Basic dives everyone needs to know if they're going to be in this sport. Nicely done.
Nikki, I call that excessive rocking.
Oh, yes.
What do you think about
I would say that in our country we would pick up on that. Internationally, I don't see him hitting that. Do you?
Now look at how much he rocks before he leaves the diving board. And let's see, I think if he receives anything above 7.5, they will not have taken off for this. If 7s or below, they might have taken off a half a point.
You know, 6, 6.5, and 7, exactly. So they did take off for that rocking, I would say.
His feet did not leave the board doing what we call a crow hop, but he had a trampoline kind of climbing the board, which they're looking for, it looks like. I'm glad of that.
Edwin Jans now from the Netherlands, doing a reverse 1 1/2 somersault with 1/2 twist, 2.1 degree of difficulty.
Well, I love the execution of the dive, but his feet weren't quite on the end of the diving board. It's so critical in those reverse takeoffs to put your feet on the end so that, number one, you don't compensate and push out too far. But let's see if you can tell. Oh, you can tell that his feet are about 3 inches, 2.5, 3 inches back from the board.
No doubt of that. He got out of that pretty good considering the takeoff problem.
129.42 points for Jans from the Netherlands. He was 4th after the previous round in a good stead. And as you hear the crowd applauding for Jose Miguel Gil, who is going to do the inward 1 1/2 somersault pipe.
His nickname is Jimmy Gill, and he goes to the University of Miami, and everybody likes him. He's fun to be around. Of course, a popular diver here in Spain is the only one in the contest this time. Jimmy does a real nice inner 1 1/2. It's got a little bend at the waist as he goes in the water. That's called a pike.
Again, I think we'll see the distance is very comfortable. Tested above the board.
Maybe even a little bit too far out.
Could be. Actually, a little turn perhaps, but
You know, it's so easy for us to take these diving apart, isn't it? Up here,
when you get a couple of replays and a couple of tries at it.
125.52 the score in the upper right-hand part of the graphic. Take a look at it. He was 15th after the second round, so he moves into good position to be in the top 12 with that score. Tom Leonda now from China, inward 1 1/2 somersault pipe.
Well, here's the man that's been runner-up so many times. I'm sure he'd like to get out of that second position.
Whoa!
With that kind of dive, we could jump to the gold medal position if he keeps that up.
And as we sit here watching, oh boy, right, his knees on his nose. That dive that's I'd say 8.5, 9.
Championship form right there. There's your big scores in the compulsory rounds right here. There's just not a lot wrong with this dive. I feel like he had his feet just a little bit apart as he left the springboard, but he certainly gets it all back together.
And those scores are right there, 8, 8.5,
I thought they'd go 9, Steve.
135.27 points moves him ahead of Kent at this point.
I feel like that if there had been more dives done like that in the first 2 rounds, that we might be seeing those 9s now, but
No one's losing them up.
That was Southon from the unified team.
Southon stalked the end of the diving board, which means that he flattened his feet before he left the end of the diving board. We can hear it. The judges are aware of that. You won't hear it on the replay, but watch, his feet are flat as he lands on the diving board, and that's called a stomp. Doesn't really allow you to go up in the air as high. And just a hair short of vertical, you see that flash coming up. But he's got his feet pointed in the air, and he flattens them right there too early, and as a result, stomps the end of the board, and that makes a loud sound, and everybody can hear that.
Plus it takes a little bit of your bounce away. You don't quite ride the board, and it'll affect the height.
7.5 and 8, 129.72 points for Dmitry Salkin from the Unified Team. Now Gregor Kozdronsky from Poland. He's doing the inward dive pike, a 1.4 degree of difficulty. This is a lower degree of difficulty. You may remember he did the forward 2 1/2 somersault pike earlier.
The old inward jackknife.
I'm glad you said that one too, Mickey, because I noted in the first round somebody did a forward dive pike, and I said it used to be called a jackknife when I first started diving. First dive I ever learned.
We get so complicated with all these important sounding names, and the people back home probably do this themselves in the local pool. Yeah.
6.5, 103.83 points for Kozdronsky from Poland. Does not put him in good stead at the top 12 of this part of the contest. Mark Work now from Canada. His final dive in the first session is the forward 1 1/2 somersault with 1 twist, 2.1 degree of difficulty.
Listen to the crowd. They'll love it.
They did love it. They like to see the somersaults with twist. Boy, are they going to go crazy this afternoon when they see that spinning and turning in those optional dives. They'll be ready for that. Mark's a graduate of the University of Alabama, had his training in the United States, and this is real typical of the U.S. style. Comes off the board, does half a somersault, wraps up a twist, mixes the water. And he had a little trouble keeping his feet together. Other than that, it was certainly a beautiful dive, but that's why he probably didn't get 8 because of the feet separation.
126 points certainly puts him in the hunt for the top 12. Now Craig Vaughn from South Africa. He's doing the inward 1 1/2 somersault tuck, 1.9.
Acceptable dive, not a terrific dive because he lost his feet right before he went in the water. I say lost them. They really didn't go away, but
He knows where they are, at least.
They're still attached to his ankles, but he separates his feet when he kicks out of the inward 1 1/2 tuck. And the judges will deduct half a point at most for that.
6.5 from the judges, 109.02 points for Craig Vaughn from South Africa. Now Christian Styren from Norway, inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
Now, he needs a pretty hefty dive here if he's going to be in the 125 range. He could use some 8s if he wants to get up there because he needs more than 50 points, probably about 53 points. Well, I don't think he's going to receive the 8s on that because he jumps back from the diving board just a little bit too far and finished that dive lower than he would if he had stayed right up over. You see, his hips are going back just a little bit too much. So he's probably 2 to 3.5 feet from the diving board. He hits the water, he's probably 4 to 5 feet because the further you go in the dive, the further out you travel.
6.5, and 7s from the judges. Nikki Steikovic, reverse dive pike, 1.9.
I saw Nicky first in 1972 in Munich. Nicky, where you won your gold medal. Do you remember what a sensation he was there?
He was, and he continued a very stunning career throughout the international scene. Although he's never medaled, has he?
No, this is his 5th Olympics, and the best he's done is 9th in 1988 on 3 meters.
This was a beautiful reverse dive pike again. The story will be told with Nicky when it comes to the optional dive to see if his strength and endurance holds up because he has had strep throat. In 1972, he was just a little type. He was probably about 4'7". He ripped dives, went in the water without splashing. That was kind of when that trend began, and he was really popular in Munich.
7.5 and 8, 124 points for Nikki Stajkovic. Now Jan Hempel from Germany, inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
See that ankle wrap again on his right ankle. I'm not sure whether it's an Achilles problem. I haven't had information on that, but it's not unusual and certainly acceptable to have tape.
Certainly didn't limit him on that push. He got a nice height. Backed off a little, threw a little bit of water short. Didn't quite get over that lineup.
Becky, how important is it to go in the water without a splash? The rule book doesn't say anything about no splash. It says vertical.
It's an impression left on people. It's one thing about that splashless, what we call rip entry. The rip really comes from the sound it makes. So not only do you have the visual no splash, but you have this impressive sound that just puts the period on the lineup. And right now it has become the norm. And if you don't rip, you don't score. And we've had a lot of talk about the splashes versus the splash entry.
Mondragon from Mexico.
It's a real pretty dive, I think. I thought that was real nice and fluid, smooth.
And I think in continuing the thought about the splash versus the splashless, is there's a lot that happens above and beyond the splash. You know, your takeoff is in the judge's critique, your height, your fluidity, your mechanics, a lot of things before the entry. And if we just judge the entry, it's unfair to the rest of the dive and to the other divers that are doing better mechanics and maybe not getting as good an entry. So there's an ongoing debate about that.
Right.
Mondragon scores 129 total points, puts him up there in the top 12 at this point. Now Kogalev from Belgium. He's doing the reverse 1 1/2 with a half twist.
Well, we know that he dived for the Soviet Union for quite a while before he went to Belgium, and that's a dive that is a typical dive for a Soviet. They learn this early on in their careers.
And in case you don't know what country he's diving for, he has Belgium cut into the back of his haircut. So he has really made the transition, hasn't he, from being in the former Soviet Union to being a Western country. He's putting it actually on the back of his head and doing well.
Definitely made a transition of some kind.
Jürgen Richter from Austria. Inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
Well, there's a good example of a pretty good dive, but without a rip entry. He made a lot of splash. To say a lot 10 years ago, that probably wouldn't be considered a lot of splash, but now because the rip is so fashionable, any splash at all could see a deduction for.
If that was a solid dive, he's deep in his pike position, line up, no save on the bottom.
6.5 and 7s, total score 113.
That's how we
I think it's important to note also that a lot of divers rip dives, don't make any splashes, but they are less than vertical. They are past vertical or short of vertical and still go in the water without any splash, and that should not be rewarded.
And I think the judges are starting to catch that, luckily.
Mrs. Lorenzini from Italy, and that was the forward 1 1/2 1 twist.
I like the mechanics on his side. His twist is very good the way he just turns around very quickly in the air. Boom. One twist, looks over his feet while he's in that tight, lines the dive up. Feet separate just a little bit as he's going in the water.
A little bit off the pace, however, with a total score of 117.63. Now, Fernando Platas doing the forward 1 1/2 somersault 1 twist. Platas was 21st after the second round.
Now there's a case of a diver getting his toes over the end of the board. We call that hanging 10.
Right.
Take off on our surfing
The
friend.
surfboard take off right here. He has trouble when
His toes curl right over.
near over the end, and sometimes that's really frightening because it feels like you're going to slip off the diving board. when you have that happen to you, and he has a little trouble then getting his feet back together. It's so typical of twisting and somersaulting dives, all that torque when you twist out of a somersault, so it's hard to keep your feet and ankles together.
Scores are 7.5, 121.95 for Fernando Platas from Mexico. Isao Yamagishi doing the same dive, the forward 1 1/2 somersault with 1 twist, 2.1 degree of difficulty.
Well, his head was down a little bit. He took off the diving board. I don't think he went up in the air as high as he could. It was sort of a little dive. I think it could have had a lot more amplitude taking off. See, he's looking down at the water right there as he takes off. See, to keep his head up a little bit more. He would do the dive above the board instead of coming underneath it with his feet.
Scores are 7, 7.5, 116.82 for Isao Yamagishi from Japan. Now, Philippe Duvernay from France doing the same dive, popular dive in this last round.
He's carried a little bit more degree of difficulty, 2.1. Oh, his feet actually touched the end of the diving board. It went by the diving board, and that's a result of putting the head down and bending over a little bit too early. In the takeoff, right there. He bends over with his head down, cuts back into the diving board, and watch this. Touches the board with his feet and gave it away because then he bent his knees a little bit.
It shook him up a little. Only one judge didn't catch it.
Well, 107.1 points certainly is not where he wants to be at the end of 3 rounds. Now, Valery Stitsenko from the Unified team, and he also is doing the same dive.
Missed again.
Well, they did a great job with the entry. That was a good job of compensating, don't you think?
Yes, he really needed to because he didn't get to the end. He kind of got his heart pumping there, and I think felt he was in more trouble than he really was, and then worked the entry down pretty well.
Well, he really has his radar on because this is where the water is. Grabs his hand, puts his dive away. Has very little splash whatsoever.
7.5 and 8, 128.16. Solid score. He certainly should be in that top 12 after the first 3 rounds. Now, Keita Kaneto from Japan doing the forward 1 1/2 somersault, 1 twist.
A lot of the men doing the same dive back to back. I always like to have my list a little bit different than the diver ahead of me. I never had any way of knowing what that diver was going to do because I didn't know who I'd be following. But we get to compare dive after dive, which is good and bad.
Right. This dive is way up in the air above the diving board, but it's out a little bit too far.
And again, this is a shorter man compared to Stepyenko, who is a taller man. They had a different look.
And 117 is Keita's total points after the first 3 rounds in his program. Now Bob Morgan from Great Britain. He'll be doing the reverse 1 1/2 somersault with 1/2 twist.
Gee, he did that very nicely.
That was pretty, I think if he had seen that entry up a little bit more, that would go 8/8 1/2. His feet were right on the end of the diving board. I think that's the key to this dive.
Set that up beautifully
Didn't
right
he,
here.
though?
Yeah.
There.
Perfect
That
target.
position on the takeoff was so nice.
Square, perfect distance. I think his only fault was that heavy entry, heavy splash on the entry.
7, 7.5, total score of 118.53. If you just joined us, the other Boise here with us today is Nikki King Hogue, who was the gold medalist in 1972 on the 3-meter event. She's been with us for a round or 2 and really enjoying the commentary, Nikki. This is Simon McCormick from Australia.
Mickey, as the president of United States Diving, are you allowed to judge in a contest like this?
Yes, through all the countries, and they're ranked internationally so that you can only judge events that match your rating, A, B, and C. We were only able to bring one judge, and we brought Hobie Billingsley, who's our mentor and sage diving coach for many, many years, and doing a great job for us in the judging panel.
Now we're going to take a look at Mark Lindsay. He was ninth after the second round. He's going to do his inward 1 1/2 somersault pike, a 2.1 degree of difficulty.
Mark had a lot of trouble in the last round. Let's see if he can pick it up here. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I thought that was a much better dive. I thought he looked a little bit nervous, to tell you the truth, in the first 2 rounds. He doesn't admit to nerves, I don't think, but I could see a little bit of that. It's pretty intimidating in the first one. But
Look
what a
how high,
jump.
yes.
What a
yes.
jump, way up above
Now,
the
see, he's checking, so he knows he's lining up from above the board, and he adds the tightness. Oh, boy. He needed that. He dived a little tentative, as you said. I think he's starting to figure out, hey, I've got to wake up and get in this event.
We always say that the optional dives are Mark's forte, but he's gotten so much better at the compulsories in the last couple of years.
And mostly eights. 131.64 will certainly put him a little bit higher in the pack at this point. Lon Wei now is going to be our next diver. We have a lot of people who are filing into the Olympic Stadium to watch the diving events. It's been a very popular event. This is Lon Wei from China. Inward 1 1/2 somersault pike.
That was great dive. That was just a beautiful dive. Way up in the air, beautiful position. A little bit better toe point than we've seen on some of the divers. That will be rewarded handsomely.
Yes, I hate to say it. He was a little higher, a little crisper than Mark was. And right here, a little tighter. His line is, and if Mark got 8, this is going to go 9.
I think it very possibly could go 9. I love the distance from the board. I think it's safe, but I think it's a very aggressive, assertive dive, and certainly the vertical line of the toe point leave a nice impression.
Scores were low.
Range, yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to
9, that's right.
That's for a double bounce.
Of course, 118 total points from that dive, that reverse dive he missed so poorly. So he is not where he wants to be after 3 rounds. And now Albin Kielak from Germany.
Alvin's a very fluid diver. He's consistent, but he's also pretty to watch. I think that he is reminiscent of Kent Ferguson. Kent has a little better stretch toe point, but Alvin certainly is graceful and artistic. He has a nice finesse to his diving, and this full twisting 1 1/2 displays that real well because he's displaying different positions in the air. Heights on the takeoff is part of the somersault, and he goes into the twist in the straight position, comes out, hikes again, looks at the water. Lots of elements to that dive and done very beautifully.
Albin Kielak scores 8, 8.5, 134.43. I mean, he is certainly one of the contenders at this point of the contest. Now Michael Murphy, the final diver in the first session, is going to be doing the forward 1 1/2 somersault, 1 twist.
Nice dive. I heard the diving board as he left it. It was quite noisy. It means that he wasn't really stepping out of his hurdle with a toe point with good rhythm there. Again, stomping the end of the diving board a little bit. He charged his ability to go up in the air high heat. Lines up the dive fairly nice, a little bit splashy on this.
Well, Mickey, we want to thank you for joining us as we look at the scores, 7, 7.5, 123.43 for Michael Murphy. Thank you very much for being with us, Mickey. We've enjoyed your commentary, and we want to wish you the best personally, and good luck to the American team.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Nick.
So this concludes the first session of dives, and Tom Leander from China is first. Kent Ferguson from the United States is second. Albin Kielak third. Mark Lindsay is in the 4th position. Dimitri Salton fifth, and Edwin Youngyans is sixth. Everyone, I'm Steve McFarland with Cynthia Potter. The first session of dives, the first 3 rounds, have been completed now, but still there is the imposing figure of Greg Louganis on the 3-meter event, even at this Olympic Games, Cynthia.
Steve, it appears it's up to one of these 2 divers to emerge out of Louganis' shadow. Tan Liang De on the left has twice been runner-up to Greg in the Olympic Games, but he has also been runner-up to the man on the right of the screen. He is Kent Ferguson of the United States, and he is the current world champion.
Well, that is true, but there are some other divers in the field that would like to claim their share of the spotlight, and after the first 3 rounds, of course, Tan Leanda is in first with 135 points, but just at .270, and less than a point behind him, Kent Ferguson, 135.180. Albert Kulak from Germany, certainly one of the contenders here, 134.430 points. Mark Lindsay from the United States is in fourth presently with 131.640 points. Dimitri Salton from the unified team is fifth, 129.720 points, and in sixth place from the Netherlands, Edwin Youngyans, 129.42 points. So they are all very, very close, less than 6 points from first to sixth place. Now, the object of the first 3 rounds and the next 3 rounds of diving is to place in the top 12 for position in the finals. And we begin with Dubaton from Italy doing his first optional dive, a back 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0. I stand corrected. That was the back 1 1/2 somersault with 2 1/2 twist, 2.8.
I'm glad you recognized the difference, Steve. That wasn't a back 2 1/2. It was a back twister, and it carries a little bit less severe difficulty than a back 2 1/2 pike. And he actually wraps his twist up very nicely as he initiates the twist right from the diving board. He doesn't stretch his feet very well on the twist. You know already that it's hard to ever during the twist, but he didn't do a very good job of stretching either.
Scores are 6.5 and 7 for the Italians dive. Now Joachim Andersson from Sweden. He's going to do the reverse 1 1/2 somersault with 2 1/2 twist at 2.9 degree of difficulty.
Well, you know, he started off the first round of optionals with a pretty intense dive, going in reverse and doing 1 1/2 somersault with 2 1/2 twist. That's pretty gutsy. I don't think you'll see a lot of reverse twisters in this particular round, but maybe it's because it's one of his better dives. I think divers like to start off with a good dive, and they like to end up with a good dive. And what I mean by that is a safe dive, a dive they don't have trouble with, and he doesn't have trouble with this one. He goes in the water very cleanly, but there's a little bit of splash indicating that he's just short of vertical.
Scores 7, 7 1/2. What kind of score ranges would you expect now in the optional?
Well, I think we're going to see everything in the second round. I think we're going to see 8 and 9, and I also think that we may see a couple of blown dives that may get 3s and 4s because we are into those difficult dives.
Dario De Fazio from Venezuela. He is doing the back 2 1/2 somersault pike at 3.0 degree of difficulty.
You know, he had trouble making the somersaults because he didn't get his arms through off the diving board soon enough. You have to reach up over your head very early, and you create leverage with your arms, just like off the platform. But he's late getting his arms up over his head. And once he does get him up, then his legs will come up over his head. But you see he lands sort of vertically. He has to arch to go in the water vertically, and that's not preferable.
And the scores are not preferable either. 5 1/2 to 6, 163.47 points. Now Kent Ferguson's first dive, back 2 1/2 somersault pike, a 3.0 degree of difficulty. An interesting choice to start with a back 2 1/2.
I think he starts with this dive because it's a solid dive. It's not his best dive, but it's solid. You know, Ken had a little problem with his feet. They came apart during the dive. It was as if they slipped, and the judges are definitely going to deduct for that. I don't think there was any disguising it. He had a good takeoff. arms up above his head very early, so he doesn't have any problems making the rotation. But watch right here as his feet come apart. They're going to see that, and they yield the duck for that. Now, why do his feet slip? Well, sometimes the ankles just come apart because they may have water on them, or he may be struggling to try and get his arms over his head and make the dive. He came out with a little bit of arch.
These scores reflect that 4.5 to 6.5. He looks up at Ron O'Brien, his coach, who is in the stands, explaining what exactly happened on that dive. David Bedard now from Canada, forward 3 1/2 somersault pike to 3.1 degree of difficulty.
Well, David doesn't have any easy dives. Most of them are 3.0 or better. In fact, they all are. And this was really a tough dive to start off with because he's going to spin around 3.5 times. His feet over the end of the diving board. He can't push with his toes when his toes aren't on the end of the diving board. So he's sliding off the end with his feet, and then he's got to push way up in the air to make the 3.5 somersault.
6.5 were the scores that he keeps, 183 total points after 4 rounds of dives for David Bedard. Evan Stewart now from Zimbabwe, his first optional dive of the second session, a back 2 1/2 somersault pike, the same dive that Ken Ferguson chose to do. These divers are diving for the top 12 finalists who will go to the finals tomorrow, but also for the position, the diving order, which we will be explaining.
That was a very nice dive for Evan Stewart. He's 17 years old. This is his first Olympic Games, and it's a lot of dive. He's doing a back 2 1/2 somersault pike. He takes off. He's got a little crimp in his knees. You see they're bent in the somersault. He tries to disguise it by putting his arms around his side. But I think it does, you see it take off, but it's still a solid dive.
Well, 6.5 and 7s. He outscored Ken Ferguson on that dive. Peter Trifonov now from Bulgaria. He'll be doing the reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0 degree of difficulty. The top diver, the diver who wins this portion of the contest, will be diving last tomorrow in the finals, and there's an advantage in going last.
And we'll talk more about that as we get further along in the contest today, Steve. Well, we start off with a pretty difficult dive, the reverse 2 1/2 somersault. A lot of these men are going to wait until the second or third round of optionals to do their reversals when they're a little bit more relaxed and have been into the contest for 30 minutes or so. And again, we're seeing a lot of crimps on these pikes. You know, it only indicates to me that maybe they shouldn't be doing this pike. Maybe they should stick with the tuck position, which carries less degree of difficulty. But I know they feel like if they don't do it pike, they're going to be really in trouble at a deficit with the degrees of difficulty.
6s and 5.5 for that dive, the reverse 2 1/2. Now, Edwin Yunyans, who is the 1-meter world champion, but was doing the forward 3 1/2 somersault pike, 3.1 on the 3-meter here today.
This guy is so strong. I think he could make that dive standing. The fact that he had a hurdle and steps prior to that to jump up to the end of the diving board, this is sort of incidental for him because the 1-meter is such a demanding contest. Being a world champion on the 1-meter indicates that he is very strong. And again, I don't think the form is very good. He bends his knees and his toes aren't stretched very well, but he makes the dive easily, goes in the water straight, and we clean on it. It's one of the better optional dives we've seen thus far.
7, 7 1/2 certainly are good scores. And now the hometown favorite, Jose Miguel. His nickname is Jimmy Gill. Forward 3 1/2 somersaults pike, same dive that Edwin Yunyans just did.
Well, I think that form was very good. He didn't have a break in his knees. He was a little slow on the somersault, so he didn't quite make it all the way around the vertical, but I like the fact that he kept his legs straight, and he has a nice toe point. He sets himself up in the hurdle pretty well here, steps out early, and gets his arms through. It takes a lot of leverage to make this dive, and the leverage is created with that arm throw early, very early. You see him step out. That's what I was talking about. Stepping out of the hurdle, getting straightened out before reaching over his head to throw his arms to the somersault. Nice tight pike. And again, the straight legs. That's necessary if you want to receive the high scores.
Score's not quite as high possibly as he would have liked, 6.5. There is 1 7.5 in that score, but it is eliminated, of course, being the high score in the field. Now, Tan Leanda from China, back 2 1/2 somersault pike. He is currently the leader after the first 3 rounds of dives. This is a 3.0 degree of difficulty.
He's a master at stopping that dive. He was fast on the dive, a little bit too far out from the diving board, but he has an uncanny way of coming out of the dive and stopping it. He makes himself longer right there when he comes out. He doesn't arch, and it really is amazing to me that he can stop this dive because it should have flown over. It should have gone past vertical, a little bit of arch on the takeoff. But he increases his radius by straightening out so wonderfully. And it goes right in the water.
Well, the scores are certainly high and reflect the appreciation of the judges for that 8.5. Will keep him in the lead at this point. Of course, we have the other rest of the field to come, and Dimitri Salton from the unified team is one of those divers.
Salton just did the best 3.5 that's been done so far in the pike position. And I think the fact that he reached early and through his arms is the key to this. Now watch where his arms are before he leaves the diving board. They were pointing above his head right there. Got him up really early. Lost his feet a little bit in the pike, but I don't know that the judges can see that. In super slow motion, yes, I can see it. But he has a nice extension onto the end of the diving board and in a reach right there, up over his head. Creates the leverage necessary to make 3.5 somersaults. Goes in the water very cleanly. Puts that away good.
7.5 and 8 will give him the second position at this point, right behind Tan Leanda. Gregor Kozlowski from Poland. He will be doing the inward 2 1/2 somersault tuck, 2.7 degree of difficulty.
Gregor is only 16 years old, and the dives that he's doing are just really not up to par, not up to standard with the leaders in this contest. This is a dive in tuck position, only 2.7. Most of the men are doing pike position at 3. Difficulty here, but he's young and he's inexperienced.
16-year-old from Poland. And the scores, as you see, reflect the inadequacies of that easier dive. Mark Rourke now from Canada doing the inward 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0 degree of difficulty.
Now this is what I was talking about. He's doing this dive pike. It was the same dive we just saw Gregor do, the 16-year-old, but this carries a higher degree of difficulty by 3/10. Very good. The pike position was impeccable. He really put his nose right on his knees and reached up above his head so that he could make the rotation. Goes in the water pretty cleanly. His distance is very important on this dive. He must keep his chest over the diving board when he throws his arms, a little bit off to the side, but his body is still in front of the diving board somewhat, and there won't be a deduction for that.
6.5, 7, and 7 from 7 1/2 from the judges. Good scores for Mark Rourke from Canada. Craig Vaughn now from South Africa. His first optional dive will be the reverse 2 1/2 somersault tuck.
Well, we know that Craig Vaughn hasn't had a lot of international experience because the Republic of South Africa has not been allowed to dive in these types of competitions since before 1972. I think it's been over 30 years since they've been in the Olympic Games. So the fact that he's doing this dive tuck and not pike may indicate his lack of experience. But he does a nice dive. He kicks out very strongly. He's just a little bit past vertical, and you see that splash come up.
You see the scores 5 to 6s, 48.72 total points for Craig Vaughn. Christian Styren now from Norway, forward 3 1/2 somersault tuck, diver who graduated from the University of Texas.
That's right. He's worked with Mike Brown, the coach at the University of Texas, for over 4 years now. That's a forward 3.5 somersault tuck. Again, not quite as high a degree of difficulty as if he would do it in the pike position. It's a little weak. You need to extend coming off the diving board more, right here. Extend through your hips and legs. And don't split the tuck. That should be a deduction, at least as comfortable as stood. His knees are apart and his ankles were apart.
Sixes, 6.5, and 7, so not a huge deduction really for that split tuck, so I'm not even sure if the judges may have seen that. We had the benefit, of course, of that instant replay in slow motion. Now we're looking at Nikki Stajkovic, another diver who has trained in the United States and has benefited from American coaching, doing a forward 3.5 somersault pike.
Nikki didn't make that dive easily. We know that he's been sick. He's had strep throat earlier in the week, and this is where I thought that would affect him if it did anywhere during the optional dives, where it takes a lot of strength, and he needs the stamina and the endurance if he's going to do these difficult dives, and it's going to take a couple of hours to complete his contact. He never made that dive, and it has to do with the arm throw before he leaves the diving board. It has to be faster.
Low scores for Nikki Stajkovic, 5.5 to 6s. Jan Hempel from Germany is doing the same dive, forward 3.5 somersault pike. Will be a good basis of comparison for the judges.
Oh, Jan only used about, I would say, 9/10 of that diving board. He landed way back from the end. And boy, it's not very flexible back there. It may have to do with his ankle. You see it's taped. And he just doesn't put his feet on the end of the board at all. It doesn't allow him to make the somersault. He's squeezing that pike as hard as he can. He does a good job from where he landed on the board, but he just didn't have a good takeoff.
And so the dive is scored in the good range from 6 to 8.5 to 8 rather. It's considered a good dive. That dive scored 6s and 7s. Jorge Mondragon now from Mexico, doing a reverse 1.5 somersault, 2.5 twists.
He jumped away from the diving board too far. On a reverse twisting and spinning dive, it's really important that he jump right up over the board on the takeoff. He almost needs to look like that he's back and over the board on the first half of somersault. Now, he's moving out here way too far in order to make the rotations. The 1.5 somersault, he's got to put 2.5 twists in the middle of that, and so that takes a lot of force to spin and twist, especially in the reverse direction.
And the score is 6.5, 7s, 188.25 total points. Now, Alexei Kogalev from Belgium, his first optional dive will be an inward, an inward 2.5 somersault pike, 3.0.
Alexei actually learned how to dive in the Soviet Union, and he has a lot of good mechanics as a result of his training there. He's in the 2.5 somersault pike. It's a wonderful takeoff. He gets his arms up, he stays over the diving board nicely. The distance is perfect. His feet pass with about 7 to 8 inches of room, so he's not dangerous. He's not going to hit his feet on the board. He's a little heavy with the splash on the entry.
There are the scores, 6.5 and 7s for the free-spirited former Soviet diver who now lives in Belgium and is married to a Belgian woman and now represents that country. Jürgen Richter is the next diver from Austria. He's doing the back 1.5 somersault with 2.5 twists in the free position.
That dive ended up beautifully going in the water, but I noticed that he moved his feet a little bit on the diving board, and there could be a deduction for that, although it's slight. I see he's moving his feet. He changes his feet position before he takes off, and we call that a double bounce. in the United States are a crow hop.
Scores are pretty consistent from the judges, 7, 7.5. And the scores do reflect the consistency in that dive. Davide Lorenzini, I should say, from Italy. Inward 2 1/2 somersault pike. It's my favorite competitor of the contest. I love to say his name after studying 4 semesters of Italian in college.
And you say it so
I do,
well.
don't I? If I just say it correctly, he'd appreciate it, I'm sure.
I think he could have gone up in the air a little bit higher on that dive. He made the dive. He was pretty low, close to the water when he finished it, but I think he could have jumped up higher. It's like he's kind of spinning on the way down here instead of letting the dive go up. That's not uncommon when you're doing a very difficult dive. It's easy to tighten up and think, oh, I have to get to the water sooner.
7.5s and 7s. Good scores, really. 182 from 4-3. Fernando Platas from Mexico. Forward 3 1/2 somersaults pike, 3.1 degree of difficulty.
He made the dive so easily. Fernando has what I would consider a very high center of gravity, spins very easily. And that is a beautiful position, and the pipe comes out. You see, he's got lots of room when he comes out. When you look at the water, his feet were a little bit apart, but I don't know if the judges can see that. They don't have the benefit of the super slow motion.
Perhaps the Japanese judge saw it, but the rest didn't. 7, 7 1/2 to 8. Those are good scores. Forward 3 1/2 somersault for Platas. Isao Yamagishi now is doing the inward 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0. Diving stadium holds about 6,500 spectators. It is nearly full on this side, but the reserve seating for the officials on the other side doesn't give any indication of really how many people are watching this contest.
That was a nice dive by Isao Yamagishi from Japan, inward 2 1/2 somersault pike. See him get his arms up before he leaves the door. Right there, reaching up above his head. Great job, and he really didn't bend his arms very much. A lot of the competitors bend them, and that's lesson is the force. You keep it straight, you get a lot more force and leverage out of the throw.
He keeps all 7s from the judges, 179.82 points.
And I would say any diver that's receiving 7s or above on their dive is going to be a contender for the finals. In fact, it might be that you could receive even 6, 6.5 on one dive and still make it to the top 12 in this contest. We haven't seen a lot of 9s thus far.
Philippe Duvernay from France.
Just held that dive a bit short on the entry. Didn't have to reach for the water quite so soon. It's a little bit conservative. But maybe it's better to go a little short of vertical than over internationally. I think that's always been the case. In the United States, we usually reward divers for going vertical or past vertical a little bit more. And internationally, not because short of vertical.
6 1/2 and 7s, 168.30. Seems like international judges like to see control, and they see a dive going short as exhibiting control, whereas the U.S. coaches and judges like to see strong spinning dives that finish high and vertical dives that sometimes are saved, I guess is the terminology, underwater.
That's right. I think in the United States, the judges consider it a complete dive. If you make the rotations or go a little bit past, that you have the ability to do the dive rather than to go short of vertical.
Now this is Ditsenko from the unified team.
You know, he's really good at going in the water without making a splash. He's so thin, he's lean, and has those pencil-like entries. But look where his feet land on the diving board. They're almost 4 inches back. You can't use the entire diving board when your feet aren't on the end. It's not as flexible back there. You'll probably watch his feet land on the end, actually. You watch the feet, then he could place them on the net.
Now Keita Kaneto from Japan. His dive, a back 1 1/2 somersault, 2 1/2 twist, 2.8.
He's a very capable diver. I'm not so sure that he couldn't do another twist here. A back 1 1/2 or 3 1/2 twist. He goes past vertical on this dive. And his form is very nice and tight. I really like the fact that he doesn't bend his knees. His stretch is never sacrificed. I think if he wrapped that twist up a little sooner, he could actually do 3 1/2 shots.
4 1/2 to 6. The high and the low score, of course, are eliminated in diving, and the middle scores are added together, multiplied times the degree of difficulty, and that score times the .6 standardizing factor. Now, Robert Morgan from Great Britain. Back 2 1/2 somersault, pike.
Robert did a great job of stopping that dive. He jumped too far away from the diving board, and his angle made it difficult for him to control the spin. He does a great job of lengthening his radius and stopping the dive. Right here when he comes out, he tightens down in his stomach, doesn't loosen his back at all, and is able to go in the water cleanly and vertically.
6 1/2, 7s, and 7 1/2 for Robert Morgan. Good scores, and certainly will keep him in contention to be a finalist at the Olympic Games. Now, Simon McCormick from Australia.
I saw Simon looking down as he left the diving board. I've spoken about the head position, I know, in the past, and again, it's important to look up if you want to go up. And look, his head is down there. I think it cuts his height off. And as a result, he's finishing his dive very low, close to the water. He's struggling to make it.
6 1/2 to 7s for Simon McCormick of Australia. And now Mark Lindsay, who was 4th after the first 3 rounds of diving, is going to enter the portion of the contest where he probably is the strongest, the optional section or session of the contest. He's going to start with an inward 2 1/2 somersault in pike, 3.0 degree of difficulty.
And this is where he can start picking up points. Definitely the best optional dive done so far in the round. He did an inward 2 1/2 somersault pike. This man is capable of doing an inward 3 1/2, but he uses this because it's a safe dive. He feels it's comfortable, it's more consistent for him, and he really knows where it is. He looks at the water, grabs, goes in cleanly. I don't know how you could be any more vertical. He stands up. He's jumping out a little bit too far, but he stands so easily that it doesn't affect his ability to make the dive and rotate.
Well, with those scores, he moves right behind Tom Leonda, who is holding the first place position thus far. Long way now. Diver who struggled a bit in the first session is doing his first optional dive, an inward 2 1/2 somersault pike as well, Cynthia.
Well, I have it, this is listed as a back 2 1/2
I'm
pike.
sorry,
We're
you're
just
right.
gonna have to
It is.
see.
It is a back 2 1/2.
Okay. This is one of his specialties. Oh, I saw a double bounce. Before he started the dive, he crow hopped on the diving board. There should be a deduction for that. He double bounced. Right there, you see his feet leave the diving board. The judges have been instructed to take off for that. And his feet come apart a little bit, similar to Kent Ferguson, but not quite as dramatic with his feet flipping.
Just a reminder that later at 2 o'clock Eastern on the Flight Channel, be sure and watch America's Kim Zemeskel and Shannon Miller and their teammates battled a strong unified team for what could be the first gold medal for any American women's team in Olympic history. That's later today on the White Channel.
Oh, Alvin Kielot from Germany. He's so fluid. I enjoy watching him dive so much. He makes the dives look easy. That was one of Greg Louganis' fortes, but he really has a nice hurdle, reaches up above his head. This is a triple twisting 1.5. He initiates a somersault, then wraps up 3 twists in the air, comes around, looks at the water, grabs his hands, and goes in vertically. That's a pretty dive. It's been one of the best done so far. I think it may be the best twister done in the first round. Very nice execution.
And the judges do agree with that because these scores will move him ahead of Mark Lindsay. He now occupies the second position and Lindsay in third with that triple twisting 1.5. Michael Murphy now from Australia is doing his forward 3 1/2 somersault pike 3.1.
Nice dive by Michael Murphy. It's a 3.5, and he does it in a tight position. That's difficult because his legs are straight. He didn't have any problems making the dive. His feet are extended into the end of the diving board. Very important. He put his feet on the end. Nice tight pike. Legs are separated just a little bit in the pike position. You can't see that from the profile. Only our overhead camera can detect that.
7, 7 1/2 for a total score of 188.46. So that concludes now the fourth round of diving with Tom Leonda still in first, Alvin Kielot just 4 points behind him, and Mark Lindsay less than a point behind Kielot. Sultan from the unified team is fourth, Jan Jans from the Netherlands is fifth, and Stitsenko is sixth from the unified team. We're being joined now by a very special guest, and we're happy to have her. She was the surprise diver and the focus of all of our attention yesterday. Mary Ellen Clark, congratulations.
Thank you, Steve. It is so nice to be in this position now, having it all finished and cheering on the guys.
Well, Mary Ellen, you were certainly focused. We saw your practices, and certainly even at the Olympic trials, you were so focused, and you stayed in that wonderful groove. What helped you prepare mentally for this event? You've never been to anything like this.
Well, I think more than anything, Ron O'Brien really helped me to focus on doing lists. Before the Nationals, 2 weeks before, I would do lists of dives as if I was in the competition. And that really helped me to make every dive count. And I did over 100 lists. And in fact, he said yesterday, I think I was on my 104th list. And so that obviously added a lot of confidence
You know,
to my diving.
I have to say, I asked Ron O'Brien that same question. He had the same answer.
Great minds think alike.
Mary Ellen, we talked to Kent Ferguson yesterday about your performance somewhat, and he said he knew you could do it all along and that you had the confidence in yourself. What did you think about the possibility of winning a medal before you got here?
Well, I had the dream ever since I was a little girl of receiving a medal, and actually, first of all, getting here and then receiving a medal. I believed in it in myself. I knew that Ron believed in me. I have family and friends that at home that believe in me, and it's so exciting because that's all that really matters.
Well, did you think about taking home a medal when you were preparing for this contest, or is that something that you try not to think about?
For me, I just focused more or less on my individual performance. I took one dive at a time and just really enjoyed myself out there. It was just so much fun. I had a blast. And so for me, the medal is the cherry.
Joachim Anderson now is beginning his dive. We saw De Botton from Italy do an unsuccessful back 2 1/2 somersault, and now Joachim Anderson is going to do the inward 2 1/2 somersault pike as the fifth round continues.
I like the way he rode the diving board and let the dive go up. And he started that somersault on the way up and didn't cut his height off. I think that's so important. And sometimes when you get nervous, you don't let the dive go above the diving board. You see, he's finishing the double board level. That really speaks highly of his ability to get his arms through and ride the board. Let it help him.
6 1/2 and 7 for the diver from Sweden. As we watch the divers continue in their list, we're joined in the broadcast position by Mary Ellen Clark, who was the bronze medalist yesterday from the women's 10-meter platform event. We're going to ask her just to stick around a little bit and see what her thoughts are on Kent Ferguson's dive.
That was a nice 3 1/2 somersault tuck. a 2.8 degree of difficulty, but it was a good takeoff. I really like the way he goes up. He reaches above his head, looks up. He had his head up as he left the board. Up, you see that split tuck again. The judges will deduct for that if they're aware of it. If his knees separate, as the ankles separate, that's called a split.
Now, we had Kent Ferguson here sitting with us right after you won. He was very ecstatic about your bronze medal performance yesterday. How do you evaluate his performance thus far?
So far, it looks like Kent is trying to get his feet wet. He's a little bit, seems a little bit nervous. He's going to have to really attack this dive.
Well, Marianne, I felt like he missed the diving board. He was kind of clunky with his feet on the end of the diving board.
Yeah, he seems to be off with his rhythm, and I hope that he just slows down so he can just do his thing, as we all know he can. Now, he's got 2 more dives to go, and I feel that he's got so much international experience, and he will come through.
And what will Ron O'Brien tell him to try and get him to slow down and maybe do what's necessary to handle the nerves that he might be experiencing?
Ronald just, I think at this point, tell him just to relax and have fun.
Well, he was in 10th after the 4th round, and that 3 1/2 somersault is not going to help his chances at all. He should be dropping a little bit more, which is going to put all the pressure really on the next round of dives. Now we're looking at David Bedard from Canada, who's doing a back 2 1/2 somersault pike.
Oh, nice dive. The Canadians can get real excited about this because he just thrilled this entry. David's been around for a long time. He's a good platform diver as well as a good springboard diver. His knees are a little bent in his pike, but he disguises it very well by reaching around his leg at the arm. But that entry is really beautiful.
Well, Ellen, before we let you go here, we want to ask one more question. Since you've had a chance to tell us about Kent, tell us about Mark Lindsay. How's he?
You know, Mark seems to have the eye of the tiger today, and I think that's really to his benefit. He is really attacking everything. He seems so self-assured. He's just going after it. He's got nothing to lose. And I think we will definitely see him in the finals if he continues.
Do you find a big difference between Mark and Kent's attitude?
Yeah, I think Kent may feel a little bit of pressure, may feel the weight of the world on his shoulders, and gosh, if I wish I was in his brain right now and just tell him to relax and have fun, and that's what it's all about.
As opposed to Lindsay, is he relaxed easier, or do you have a better time?
I think Mark is just enjoying himself at this point, and it's very obvious with his diving, because when you're relaxed, you have no worries, and all you can do is good dive.
Well, then you must have been relaxed the last 2 days.
That's exactly right. Thanks, Cindy. It was fun.
It was fun to watch.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for joining us, Mary Ellen, and let's hear you cheer on the team later on.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Mary Ellen, and
Thanks again.
congratulations from all of us.
Thanks.
That was Peter Trifonov from Bulgaria doing the reverse 1 1/2 somersault with 3 1/2 twists. And we were fortunate to have Mary Ellen Clark join us for her recap of her bronze medal and also an opinion on some of the other divers.
That's right. This was a nice reverse 1 1/2 to 3 1/2 twist. He just got a little tangled up with his feet there. I think if he hadn't crossed his feet, he might have received those 7s that would have paid off on his 3.3 to be able to get the dive.
Edwin Junjans now from the Netherlands doing the most difficult dive from the 3-meter springboard, the reverse 3 1/2 somersault tuck, 3.5 degree of difficulty.
Well, he tried to do the most difficult dive there was, but he wasn't very successful at it. That takeoff is so critical when you're doing reverse 3 1/2 somersaults. I would say 98% of the men in this contest will do a reverse 2 1/2. Edwin adds another somersault, adds a lot of degree of difficulty here, and he's struggling to make it because he just didn't get set up in balance on the end of the diving board very well.
And the scores are 4 to 6, and everything else in between. He really nets 5s on that dive. Jimmy Gill now from Spain. He also is going to do the reverse 3 and 1/2 somersault tuck, a 3.5 degree of difficulty. And if he does it well, he certainly will benefit with higher scores than Edwin Yunyon's.
He had the potential to do that dive well. Most of the time you see the diver struggling to make that dive, to make the 3.5 rotations. But he didn't have any problem whatsoever. He went over on the dive, and he has a nice takeoff. He stays just within the right distance of the diving board to make it. He's spinning reverse 3.5 somersaults. He kicks straight up, and he goes flying over, past vertical. He needed to kick a little bit sooner. Maybe he wasn't aware that he was spinning quite so fast. But he just kicked straight up. I don't think that dive could have gone straight in, even if he was spinning slower and kicked straight up like that. You have to kick a little bit short of vertical.
Well, you can guess the whistles were for those low scores. Now, Ton Leonda is doing the inward 2 and 1/2 somersault pike. He is the current leader, and this, Cynthia, is typically a very strong dive for him.
This is. Let's see if he lifts his feet off the diving board before he leaves it. I did not see air. I didn't see a throw hop on the inner diving board. The Chinese really concentrated on trying to get rid of that. They know that the judges have been alerted, and there is a deduction for lifting your feet off the diving board, and I didn't see his toes were still in contact with the board before he jumped up over the board. And his distance is perfect. He makes the dive easily. He lines it up. No crow hop there. No deduction for bent knees or any flaw in the form. Just an impeccable dive.
And the scores are also impeccable. 8.5. 1 7.5, of course, is eliminated. He keeps all 8.5s, and he continues his winning ways to this point. Now, Dimitri Saltin from the unified team. He is doing the back 2 and 1/2 somersaults in pike, 3.0 degree of difficulty.
Dimitri stopped that dive pretty well. He had his head back in the pike position, and it's hard to stop the dive sometimes if you're spinning very quickly, and of course you must spin fast to do a back 2.5 somersault. Watch his head position. He's got it back here as he comes around, rather than tucked in before he stretches out of his back 2.5 somersault. Looking a little bit too far back. Then he pulls his chin in. Now he's pulling it back again. Just changing his head position too much there.
Saltin was an interesting diver who was involved in a knifing incident in St. Petersburg in Russia, and that happened in December. He certainly has recovered and is diving well here. That was Kozdrowski from Poland, diver who has been struggling pretty much off and on all day.
Yes, he's young, he's only 17 years old, and this is a bit too much dive for this youngster. A 3.5 somersault, it's just not capable of making the dive. He's a little more strong, and it doesn't look like his mechanics are sound enough to be able to do this dive.
Mark Rourke now, forward 3 and 1/2 somersault pike. This is a 23-year-old diver who is from Canada, who, as Cynthia pointed out earlier, has graduated from the University of Alabama.
And what a nice young man he is.
Does he speak with an Alabama accent, I wonder?
Not anymore. He's gone back to Canada. He's a solid diver. He just doesn't miss a lot of dives. If the contest is going badly, you'll see Mark Rourke in the top 10. Now, he's not going to do a whole lot of dives for 9s, but he is solid in the 6.5 to 8 range, almost on every dive. He's going to receive 7, 7.5 on the dive.
And indeed he does. 255.60 total points, and he is just cruising along about where he wants to be at this point. Craig Bond now from South Africa, inward 2 and 1/2 somersault in tuck, 2.7 degree of difficulty. South African diver who was coached in South Africa and here by his mother, Maureen. Kristen Styron now. He's doing a reverse 2 and 1/2 somersault tuck.
Kristen has a real nice way of coming out of this dive and going in the water, but he's just not real dynamic off the diving board. And the judges would like to see a little bit quicker reflexes when he comes off. He needs to get his knees up into that tuck sooner. Just a little bit slow and sluggish. But he has a nice kick out, and he's very smooth. It sounds contradictory almost, but you could be quicker and still be smooth as well.
6.5 and 7s, 225.81 for Christian Styron from Norway. Nikki Stajkovic now, back 2 and 1/2 somersault pike.
Not bad for Nicky. He lands a little bit on his shoulders. I thought he could have tightened down and grabbed his hands better for a cleaner entry. But he actually gets his legs up and the tight position looks good. Doesn't clean up that entry. Nicky knows how to do. He's been around for a long time and he was a master at the rip.
Well, he's a 33-year-old with a lot of experience who was born in Salzburg, Austria, but resides in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now Jan Hempel, inward 2 and 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0 degree of difficulty.
I have a feeling that Jan Hempel's ankle is really bothering him. I saw him talking to the German coaches earlier. I don't know that he wasn't considering not diving. He's just not pushing well off the diving board, and I know what a great competitor is. He's a terrific platform diver. He won the Brazil Games and has won the international meet down in Fort Lauderdale, previously the Alamo International. And seventh is quite respectable for the dive, actually.
Might he be risking his performance on platform by diving premium?
Well, I hope that's not the case, but I think he's smarter than that, so I'll have to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, Jorge Mondragon now from Mexico, inward 2 and 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
Mondragon is a very impressive diver because he's graceful, he's quick, he has all the elements. He needs to squeeze his ankles, really concentrate on keeping his feet together. And he slips sometimes. We've seen 2 or 3 divers slip with their ankles today on dives. If he slip off and he hit the water, he had one foot in front of the other.
7 and 7.5, 253.30 points for Mondragon from Mexico, and now Alexei Kogalev, who's the Belgian representative here, doing the back 2 and 1/2 somersault pike. And yes, that is Belgium, that is spelled in his fashionable haircut.
Steve, if you really like that, I think we could work that one out for you. What is it you'd like to spell?
I don't know if I can spell Boston on my head or not.
This back 2 and 1/2 somersault pike started out with a little arch. It's listed in the pike position, so it shouldn't have an arch in the beginning. And as a result, it arches on the end, too. What happens in the beginning is likely to happen in the end.
Mostly 6s from the judges for Kogalev. Jürgen Lichter now from Austria. His dive, a 3 and 1/2 somersault tuck.
believe, but his hurdle isn't very high. Let's watch how high he jumps in hurdle. Looks like a little hurdle to me. It's more reminiscent of a junior diver than a senior diver. And look at his feet in the tuck. We call those monkey feet. They're not stretched. His ankles are not flexed.
Near the scores for the monkey-footed diver.
Hope I'm not offending any environmentalist or animal lover here.
Jürgen Richter, who does have a sense of humor, I'm sure would appreciate those comments. Lorenzini from Italy. Back 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
Well, he's out too far. He jumped out away from the diving board and doesn't go up as high as he could if he would stay a little bit closer. That angle off the diving board, it increases the further you go. It's like if you fall further and further and further, the further out you go. If that angle is a little bit in the start of the diving, it's going to be a lot by the end of the dive.
And 6 1/2 and 7, really decent scores for that dive for Lorenzini of Italy. Now Platas from Mexico, reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
Well, that not concerned me on the takeoff. I thought it might actually be a little too close to the diving board. We haven't seen that happen. We saw one gentleman's feet touch the diving board in earlier rounds, but we haven't seen anything that looked dangerous. And this was a little bit too far back, I thought, taking off from the end of the diving board. You see, for comfort, I would feel like he should be about 3 or 4 inches further out in the middle of the pool, and that would give him a little more control as well.
7 1/2 and even an 8 on the score for Platas from Mexico. Yamagishi now from Japan. His 5th dive, a reverse 1 1/2 somersault, 2 1/2 twist.
Iseo had a nice start on that dive. He didn't tighten down on the finish. In order to receive those 8s and 9s, he really has to be tight, stretched legs and feet. So his feet come apart a little bit as he left the diving board. The start was accurate. He makes the dive really well. The last time he isn't ready for the water when it hits him.
And lower scores for that dive, 6s and 6 1/2. Philippe Duvernay now from France. He's doing the reverse 1 1/2 somersault with 3 1/2 twists. 3.3 is the degree of difficulty.
Oh, the reason he missed that dive is his feet almost fell off the end of the diving board of the hurdle. He had one foot that was all the way off the board. And see if we can detect this when his feet come down. I have a feeling there. His toes were all the way off the board. He certainly can't push up in the air very well. And when that happens, the diver's always concerned that they're not going to make the somersault. So they dig real hard, bear down, and all of a sudden the dive goes over. Well, I sound like the University of Arizona cheerleader saying bear down, don't I? That's my next one.
Valerie Stutsenko now from the Unified Team. Back 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
He has such a great sense of humor. I love visiting with him, even though we don't really speak the same language. Just real lighthearted. He's a fun guy to be around and can take a bit of kidding. Of course, I can't.
Yeah,
But this back 2 1/2 somersault pike is pretty well executed. He has a little bit of arch on the takeoff as well. A lot of these men arch on the takeoff because that is part of starting the dive. That gets the somersault going. But unfortunately, it also is responsible for a loss of control. So if they can do it without arching, it will work out a little better. So that was nice.
sevens will certainly keep him in contention. Keita Kaneto now from Japan. Back 2 1/2 somersault pike.
3.0 degree of difficulty. Anytime a diver has 3.0 or above on the springboard, that's a good list of dives. Whoops, couldn't control the entry on that. Now we're seeing things really start to loosen up here. We're seeing some good dives, 7s and above, and we're seeing also some dives that are getting 5s and below, and those are really going to separate the field here. He just loosens up in the water. I don't know what happened. He must have seen the water, but he didn't have confidence that he was going to go in straight.
5.5 and 6 for the Japanese diver. Bob Morgan now from Great Britain. Reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike 3.0.
Robert has a real good feel for where he's going on this stuff. His hurdle wasn't the greatest hurdle in the world. He's a little bit back from the end with his feet when he lands. Let's see if we can tell 2 or 3 inches back. Oh, about 2 inches back from the end of the diving board. But he spots the water well. He's had some training with Ronald Ryan in the United States. And I think that probably helped him guiding with Kent Ferguson and Ron's team.
Scores are very good, 7, 7 and 1/2. He actually is ahead of Kent Ferguson at this point of the contest. Simon McCormick now from Australia, back 2 1/2 somersault pike.
These back and reverse optionals are so critical in the lift. If a diver gets past those dives, most of the time they feel like they're in good standing. Do those dives 6.5 or better. Nice back 2.5 somersault pike. Could be a little stronger jump. Go ahead and tighten down. Some of these divers are just not extending all the way off the diving board. A little arch in the water. You want to see straight lines. You don't want to see arches. Judges take off about 1/2 a point for that.
6s and 7s, 235.47. Now Mark Lindsay, who had an excellent start with an inward 2 1/2 somersault pike, is going to do the back 2 1/2 somersault pike at 3.0 degree of difficulty.
Mark has a lot of confidence on his optional dives, and he should. He was actually a little stuck on that dive. I think it was slow, but he knew right where he was going. He spots the water well, and it's a good dive. It's not the best one he's ever done, but he doesn't need to do a great one right now. He's in real good position to be in one of the top 3 spots. He hasn't missed an optional dive. His dive just rotates a little bit past vertical, and he falls back. I would say 6 inches too much from the diving board. Just a little bit out of control here. Look at him with his head in mind. He looks at the water and the diving board there. He knows right where he is. That Kimball is very good at teaching divers how to spot the water.
The scores are 7s and will keep him right behind Tom Leonda at this point of the contest. Now Lon Way, who has been struggling and did not do a very good inward 2 1/2 a few minutes ago, is going to try the inward 2 1/2 somersault pike at 3.0 degree of difficulty.
This contest has been a little bit erratic, and I think that is indicative of nerves in the qualifying rounds. Boy, Ron Way looks like he has adrenaline for the next week.
He sure does.
He's jumping so high that he's a little bit out of control. He needs to be very aware that he's jumping up over the diving board, he's spinning fast. Boy, don't let it get away from you. You know the international judges are not going to reward a dive that goes past vertical, and that's what that dive does. If he would go a little bit short of vertical, he'd receive those 8s.
6s and 7s for Lon Way.
Certainly not a blow, but he could have gotten wrong on that dive, I believe.
Now Alvin Kielot, German diver who's had a ton of experience in Olympic diving, doing his inward 2 1/2 somersault and pike.
Now, Alvin Kielot just did a nice inward 2.5 somersault throwing his arms and creating that leverage to make the dive, and has no problem. He's absolutely safe, perfect distance from the board. He could even be closer and still not be injected or hitting his feet on the board. He's got at least 6 inches. He could come in a couple of inches and even make that dive a little bit easier.
Keelock scores 6.5 and 7s will put him behind Mark Lindsay at this point. Michael Murphy now, who's the Australian diver. Last diver in this round, doing the back 2 1/2 somersault pike.
Nice that 2 1/2 somersault pike. His feet flipped a little bit. The judges are going to look for those flips, especially on the entry. That's the last thing they see is the feet. I've been impressed by Michael Murphy because he's strong and he's precise. He's quick in his movements. He's got nice reflexes. He needs to get rid of that arch and just put his feet together going in the water.
And the scores are 7s and 1 6.5. So let's recap now. Take a look at where the divers stand after 5 rounds. Tom Leonda is in first. Lindsay for the United States second. Alvin Keelock is third, with Salton and Platas in fourth and fifth, and Stitsenko in sixth. The American diver, Kent Ferguson, has been struggling and is currently in 17th place. And again, that puts a lot of pressure on the next 2 dives, the last 2 opportunities for him to get into the final.
Yes, it does. I'm concerned about him, but Mary Ellen indicated that she felt he would make the finals. He's not going to have trouble in the last 2 rounds. And I noticed he has good dives. They're safe dives. He has an inward 2 1/2 and a reverse twister, which is his best dive in my opinion. So I still think he can make the top 12, but he may not be in a good position to win a medal tomorrow because he might not be in the top 6. We've talked about the importance of being one of the last 6 divers in the round. And, of course, they go in reverse order in the finals from the way they finished in the qualifying round. So it's going to be an uphill battle for him from now on. And if he could get near the top 6 in this contest, it will make it a lot easier on him tomorrow. Fortunately, they start over and the points do not carry over.
Well, we will certainly monitor this, and we'll give you an idea of what kind of scores Kent needs to be in the top 12 and also the top 6.
I really feel that he's going to need some 8s in these last 2 rounds to even approach a medal for tomorrow.
The question is, will he need 8s and have others miss? That's the scary part.
Mm-hmm.
Dupitone now from Italy.
Well, that's a bit of a miss. He went way past vertical as he went in the water on that dive. Just never really seemed to have a good grasp of this dive. He goes up in the air with an arch and a knee bend. That shows a little bit of relaxed control. He certainly seems to look at the water nicely, but can't control it because he's swinging. If you bend your knee coming off the diving board, it's going to catch up with you somewhere in the air because it'll give you that little whip.
Jochen Anderson from Sweden, forward 3 1/2 somersault pike for his 6th dive.
Jochen has a real good feel for the water, and he's very strong. You know, we see so many divers in this contest that are pencil thin, and they go up in the air very high. Well, this is the opposite. He has a body build that is not indicative of a lot of great divers, but he's very strong. And he doesn't have a problem making the dives. He needs to be a little bit more refined in his entries and his lines.
He does look like he could do well in the wrestling venue also. Dario De Fazio now from Venezuela. The reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike 3.0.
A little conservative on that dive. I think he really should have stretched through on the end of this and could have drilled it. He wasn't quite sure that he was going to go in the water vertically. And the confidence confidence really shows when you get to these optional dives. This is really a good dive. Stretch right there going in the water. Just loosens up. He doesn't have his arms tightly enough over his head. Get his elbows in more, he might rip that dive.
Here are the scores we're looking at for that dive. Now to Kent Ferguson. Here is the spread. He's 9 points out of 12. He's 19 points out of 6, which means that if he wants to be in the top 6, he's going to have to do just 9 possibly, and hopefully other divers will give him an opportunity to move in the top 6. But
Certainly 8 and above. I think he will receive the 8 on that dive. That was very nice. It was smooth. It was pretty. It was very clean going in the water. He doesn't do anything erratic on this dive, and I'm impressed with his composure at this point, because a lot of divers would panic and think that they had to do something extra special. He just has to dive and get some 8 and not worry about too much except that next dive coming up in his own position, not somebody else's.
306.90 is his point for the 6 rounds of dives that he's completed thus far. Now David Bedard from Canada, reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike.
Goes in the water cleanly, but he has an arch in his back. You know, I have a bad back, and I watch these divers going in the water with an arch, and my back feels hurt, and I think I'm feeling a sympathetic response up here, Steve. You see his knees are bent in that fight. The form is not great. I think some of these divers may be sacrificing form for their degree of difficulty, and that's unfortunate.
There is some discussion among international coaches about that very subject. 6.5 and 7 for the scores for Bedard from Canada. Now Evan Stewart, forward 3 1/2 somersault pike, 3.1 degree of difficulty.
A lot of dive for this 17-year-old. Well, one of these days he's going to do that dive for 8 and 9. Right now, he's going out a little bit too far away from the diving board. He's not happy about the dive, and I understand that he's been diving since he was just a little tyke. I visited with his family in Hawaii a couple of years ago, and Evan was just learning some of his difficult dives, and he really had trouble with the hurdle there, so he's not happy with the dive, but he's got a lot of diving ahead of him.
His father, Rob Stewart, not only is his coach, but is an international judge representing Zimbabwe, and is coach, or judge, I should say, many Olympic Games, including this one. He, of course, is not judging his own son here. Trifonov now from Bulgaria, forward 3 1/2 somersault pike.
No, he was really stuck on the dive. He was having trouble making the rotation. He had his head down on the takeoff. Now, you see that he's going to over-rotate on the end of this dive, but it's not because he's fast or he's out of control with too much somersault. It's because he holds on and he digs. He keeps his head way down and looking underneath him, and the dive rolls in. He really never completes the dive, and it just doesn't happen for him. It doesn't work.
Low scores for Trifonov, 36.27 total points for that dive. Now, Edwin Junjans from Netherlands, inward 2 1/2 somersault pike.
Well, the dive ended up vertically, and it was very clean. His takeoff lacked a little form. His feet looked like they were flapping in the breeze there, Steve. It really flattened his feet off the diving board. Let's see if we can see it here. Oh, they just have no toe point whatsoever. Does a little better job when he gets into the water. He sets his feet, but he has trouble with that.
As the 1-meter world champion, you're not in the air as long, so the judges don't really have a chance to evaluate those fine points sometimes.
You know, those feet look smaller on the 1 meter.
Maybe so. Jimmy Gill, you can tell where he's from. Inward 2 1/2 somersault pike.
I know the crowd would like him anyways, but the fact that he's just a fun guy to be around, terrific personality, helps too. The crowd's giving him applause, but it wasn't really a very good dive. He turned sideways as he left the diving board. And let's see if we can see that turn to the left here. Yeah, he turns right to the left side and jumps way back, really squeezing to try and make the dive and just lat somersaults here. The crowd's not going to like the scores he's going to get because it wasn't a good dive. The judges are doing their job by not rewarding that.
Of course, in Spain, whistling is not considered to be a very positive response to something. In the United States, a few boos might be a little bit more overt. Tonleanda, his next dive, forward 3 1/2 somersault pike, 3.1.
Good. This contest has been so erratic at Tonleanda because it's so steady right now. He and Mark Lindsay are probably going to battle it out for first and second place. And this dive is not great, but it's good. It's good. His feet came apart a little bit as he left the diving board. His knees can be stretched more in the pike. But, you know, getting around to picking out a lot of details here because the dive is always going to receive 11 heads or above. When he makes the forward 3 1/2 somersault so easily, and he goes in the water cleanly. He actually has a little trouble stopping the dive because he's got so much rotation there. A lot of leverage for Tonleanda. He's good at that.
Not great, but good. 7 1/2 and 8s, 3:55.35 certainly puts him right back into the leader's position and in control of the contest. Dimitri Sautin now. Reverse 3 1/2 somersault, 2 1/2 somersaults.
I'm glad he didn't do a reverse 3 1/2 somersault, Steve, because he wouldn't have made it on that takeoff. The diving board was very noisy as he hit the end of it. Means that he's flattening. He's anticipating the dive very early, and that happens a lot of times on the optional bend in the knees. I talk about some of these divers sacrificing form for degree of difficulty, and that's really not very pretty.
Well, just bear in mind now that these divers who are missing these dives, who are ahead of Kent Ferguson, are giving him an opportunity now to get back into the contest a little bit more.
That's a very good point. Kent just got a couple of 8s. He has his best dive coming up, so he has. The door is opening somewhat. Let's see if he can take advantage of it and walk through it in the last round of the qualifying yet to come for Kent Ferguson.
Kozgonski now from Poland, back 2 1/2 somersault tuck.
Well, unfortunately, he didn't make the dive. I didn't think his takeoff was that bad. If he had held on a little bit longer, I have a feeling that he doesn't spot, he doesn't use his visual references, that he's going by feel. I don't see his eyes open. That's definitely the case. He really needs to learn how to open his eyes and spot something, whether it be the springboard or the water, to use those visual references and know where vertical is.
Mark Rourke now from Canada, reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike.
There was one tiny flaw, and it was his feet coming apart in the middle of the somersault. But he's got such nice balance on the end of the diving board. His rhythm, his timing, yeah, and he does not bend his knees. He is not sacrificing form here. And I just see his feet come apart right there. They come apart, barely just gets them back together, so I don't even know if that would be a deduction. Depends on, yeah, I think those judges that gave it a 7,
There were
they
some
took off a little bit.
judges who may have taken off for that. Those were still good scores, though, for Mark Rourke. Now, Craig Vaughan from South Africa, reverse 1 1/2 somersaults, 2 1/2 twists, 2.9.
Craig Vaughan's going to have trouble making that dive until he decides to keep his head in on the takeoff. He's looking back, and his arms don't come through very well when he throws his head back before it right there. Head is way back. It's almost like a backspin taking off, and that prohibits him from spinning 1.5 somersaults. He can twist all right, but he can't spin that way. He needs to use his arms more and his head left.
4.5 and 5s for the young diver from South Africa. Christian Styren now from Norway. Forward 1.5 somersault with 3 twists. This is 2.9 degree of difficulty.
He had lots of great experience in the United States by diving in the NCAA so many times, diving against a lot of champions in the U.S. Very solid dive, triple twisting 1.5, 2.9 degree of difficulty. So many of these divers are doing reverse 3.5 twisters, which carry 3.3 degree of difficulty. So he really needs to do a good triple twister. Needs to receive 7s and above in order to have a chance of getting that bonus. And I think he will. This is a nice smooth dive. Stretch those feet and legs more and you get higher scores on that.
6.5 and 7s, and if he takes some of Coach Potter's advice, he might get higher scores next time. Stylen from Norway. Stajkovic now from Austria. He's doing the reverse 1.5 somersault, 2.5 twists.
Nice dive for Nick. It's one of the best dives he's done thus far. Talked about his illness, his strep throat earlier in the week. He's been training in New Mexico with the University of New Mexico diving coach, Rick Thomas. And he actually has been residing in Hawaii, so he's an international figure no matter how you look at it. He owns a house in Hawaii. He loves to live there. He doesn't try to sell the house. But I think that sickness has taken it out of him. If he can make the finals, it's going to be tough. He's going to have to do a great last dive in order to be in the top.
Well, we're going to give you a Kent Ferguson update. He's presently in 7th place, having completed now almost half of the rotation in the list of divers in this contest. We're on the 17th diver, Jan Hempel. Ferguson is in 7th place, so there are 6 divers ahead of him, and other divers in the field yet to come may move above Ferguson. Jan Hempel.
Jan Hempel, being known for his platform diving, isn't having a great day on the springboard. It doesn't mean that he still can't make the finals, but he just missed a back 2.5 somersault. So it's going to come down to the last round. Who can do dives for 7.5s or better in the last round in order to make that top 12? But he really is out of it at this point with that back 2.5 pike. Goes way past vertical over rotation. You see the low is a 4.5. Really didn't think that too many times to be in the top 12.
Jorge Mondragon now. Back 2.5 somersault pike. This is one of the divers who's been ahead of Kent Ferguson.
Mondragon from Mexico has a lot of support here, and he's diving well. It's going to be tough for Kent to come out ahead of him in the qualifying rounds unless Mondragon misses, because this is not a miss. This is a very nice back 2.5 somersault pike. Just a little bit of arch as he goes in the water, but it's solid. 7.5. That keeps him in the ballgame.
Certainly does.
No
Keeps
doubt.
him, moves him to 4th presently, and ahead of Ferguson still. Alexei Kogalev now. Reverse 2.5 somersault pike. He was not ahead of Ferguson. Very close to him, around 16th or 17th place.
Well, that'll drop him back even further, so not a threat at this point to Kent Ferguson. He just didn't have any chance of making the somersault here. He's not swinging his arms over his head soon enough. When you look at his head position, it's way back in the somersault. It's hard to get into a tight position when your head is back. You really need to keep it. The chin has to be down a little bit more. Get in there, squeeze that pie.
Jürgen Richter now from Austria. Austria, back 2 1/2 somersault.
Pretty entry. The distance from the board was impressive. So many divers have gone out too far on the back 2 1/2. He jumps right up over the diving board. Good distance down. He needs to work on his feet. He's got one foot that is really flat there. He points him as he goes in the water, but that somersault, he had one that was totally flexed forward. That's where that 5 1/2 comes from.
And that will not move him ahead of Ferguson at this point. Lorenzini now from Italy. He was 15th, was just slightly ahead of Ferguson after the previous round.
He'll stay ahead of him if he receives 7 1/2 or above.
This is a reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike.
A good jump, yes. I think that will keep him ahead of Kent Ferguson at this point. He went in the water with a rip entry. A nice jump off the diving board, perfect distance. The balance is so critical. With all of that flexibility on the end of the diving board, you really have to stretch your feet and have a straight body line coming into the diving board. That's a nice dive. Starts to rotate just a little past vertical, but very consistent.
Excellent scores, 7s and 8s, 312.93. He is 6 points ahead of Ferguson at this point. Fernando Platas from Mexico, reverse 1 1/2 somersault, 3 1/2 twist. He also was a diver ahead of Ferguson after the previous round.
Now that'll drop him back, even though he had 3.3 degree of difficulty. 2/10 more than the dive that Kent did, 3/10 actually. He misses this dive because he wraps his twist up too late. The somersault gets away from him. Now he has a lot of somersault here, but he doesn't have enough twist early enough. He should have completed 3 twists by now. He's still struggling past the 2 1/2 twist. You see the somersault gets way away from him, but he's still got twists to do.
Well, that's a type of advantage that he's giving away to Ferguson, 296.97. He falls behind Ken Ferguson of the United States. Isao Yamagishi from Japan, reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike.
Isao had nice board work. He was very quiet and smooth on the end of the diving board. He didn't really spin back up into his reverse spinning somersault. He really needs to tighten his legs down. There, pull him up above his head and tighten down. Just a little bit lazy coming off the board. Although the hurdle and the balance was very good. Just didn't really follow through.
5 1/2, basically 285.90 for Yamagishi from Japan. Now, Duvernay from France, back 2 1/2 somersault pike.
Came out of the dive too early. It was a really good start on the dive. It only makes me think that he's not using his visual references either. If he knew to look at the water or the diving board, he could point his feet in the right direction to go in vertically. I see his head is back in the somersault. I don't see him spotting the water. He may have taken a look at the diving board, but he didn't take a long enough look at it to figure out where to put his legs.
Low scores again, 258.84. Stetsenko now from the unified team. Inward 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0. He was in 6th place and ahead of Ferguson after the previous round, so let's see what he does.
He'll stay ahead of him
He
with
will.
that dive. That was one of the best inward 2 1/2 somersault pikes that been done. It's a very smooth dive. He's got these long limbs, but he also has the capability of generating a lot of force with those arms, those long levers as they're used in diving from a physics standpoint. The arms are levers. They throw right down in front of him to create that somersaulting force. He goes by the diving board with not a lot of room with his feet. He didn't hit it, so there certainly wouldn't be a deduction there.
And with those scores, he moves into the second position at this point of the contest and is diving well and has the momentum behind him. Keita Kaneto now from Japan. Inward, reverse, 2-1/2 somersault pike, 3-0.
Well, I knew he was in a little trouble on the end of the diving board. He was moving through that hurdle. His balance was going off the end of the board instead of staying with it and letting the board push him up into the air. His stomach is following out, so that trajectory is going out instead of up. He sacrifices tight positions there. Pulls that dive around pretty well, but has to arch to do it.
And his hand signals to his coach certainly agree with that analysis, Cynthia. 263.34. Divers and coaches communicate with their hands often, and that, of course, signals the angle of the body leaving the board. Bob Morgan now, inward 2-1/2 somersault pike.
Had trouble with that dive. He's been diving very well up until now, but he's stuck on the dive. He doesn't get his arms through soon enough to make the somersaults, and his hips go back a little bit too far from the diving board. This is a lot of dive to begin with, but you have to stay on the board and keep that balance over the board. The chest and the head must stay over the board on the takeoff.
The score, 6.5. He does stay ahead. He does fall behind a bit of Ferguson on that, 6 points behind.
Right, that was a lucky break for Kent
Right.
right there.
Simon McCormick now, inward 2-1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
Nice dive for Simon. He could throw his arms a little bit sooner and finish that dive higher, closer to 3 meters, but he made the dive. It's a little low, but it's still a nice dive. It'll get good scores. They're not going to get great scores because of that low finish, but he does make the dive, and he's got a little splash indicating that he's struggling just a hair to make the rotations.
6.5 and 7s, 297.57 for the Australian diver. Now Mark Lindsay, who would like to be an American hero here, is born on the 4th of July and would like to have that gold medal to go with that birth date. He's going to do the forward 3-1/2 somersault pike.
Oh, Mark had a lot of trouble with that dive. He still ended up almost vertical, but he didn't quite put his feet on the end of the diving board. He goes up a little too straight. I've talked about the distance. He should let this dive go out. You see his feet are 3 inches back. He needs to let this dive go out just a little bit further. You see he's squeezing. He comes out, realizes that he's going to be a little short of vertical and tries to ride it around, but it's a little short.
6s and 6.5s is basically what Mark kept on that dive. Long way from China, forward 3-1/2 somersault pike, 3.1.
Now that distance allowed him to make the somersaults easier than Mark Lindsay. He moved the dive out, I would say about a foot further than Mark Lindsay did. And also look at his foot placement on the end of the diving board. His feet are on the end. He looks up as he takes off. He's moving through the air with a little bit more trajectory than Mark. So he makes the somersaults easier. There's that sweet spot. You want to be so far away from the diving board, but you don't want to be too far away from the board.
Kevin Keelot now, back 2-1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
because he's a smart diver. He knows how to compensate pretty well for this takeoff that's a bit weak, but he could do that dive a lot better.
Judges' scores 6.5, 329.10. Kent Ferguson is in the 12th to 13th position. He's right there on the bubble as it stands right now with Michael Murphy, the last diver in this round, getting ready to do his reverse 2-1F somersault pike.
Nice job from Michael Murphy. Nice job. Very steady. He's smooth on the end of the diving board. He moves very easily, and he's got nice feet and legs. Those toes are beautifully pointed, extended. I like the fact that he doesn't bend his knees in his pike. Just a little arch. To get rid of that, you'd see those 8s.
7.5, 2.8, so he keeps 1 in diving. The high and the low, of course, is eliminated. So he benefits from 1.8 from those judges' scores. There you're looking at Juan Carlos's wife, Queen Sophia, who's graced us with her presence today. And as we look at the standings, Tan Lianda from China maintains his lead. Alvin Keelot, Mark Lindsay, top 3. Stutsenko and Rourke are the round out the top 3 or 4. And we're looking at Ferguson now, 306.90 points. He is in 13th, 306.90 points. He is a few points out of the top 6, and he's about 9 points out of top 6. So how do we look for a diver moving up on the last round of the qualifying under these type of tense conditions that we're going to see?
My sense is that he's going to be in the finals. He's going to be in the top 12. He's got his best dive yet to come. It's a high degree of difficulty, but somebody's going to have to miss in order for Kent to get in the top 6, and Kent is going to have to do a dive for 8.5 plus to be in the top 6. That's my sense of what it's going to take for Kent to be in that position. And I think if he's going to contend for a medal in the finals tomorrow, he needs to be in one of those top 6 spots.
So it's more than just being in the finals, although better to be in the finals than not, obviously. But to really be in the hunt for the medal, he is the world champion after all. You would expect him to be in the top 6, and this is his final opportunity to do so. All the pressure is on him. Are others going to have to miss for that to happen?
Well, yeah, I think so. At least 4 or 5 divers are going to have to miss, and like I said, Kent's going to have to receive 8.5 or above in order to be in one of those top 6 spots. And those top 6 spots are pretty solid. Those divers are good, and they don't miss on their last round very often.
Dubatone now from Italy, inward 2-1F somersault pike.
Boy, he really went in the water cleanly. He was back from the end of the diving board. There'll be a bit of a deduction because he's trading again height for distance here. His hips are going back right there. He pushes back, doesn't extend with his ankles up over the board. He's got a good 2 feet between his feet and the diving board. I'm talking about the distance. So, you know, it's a good dive. It's not a great dive just because of the distance. That's the only reason.
Joachim Anderson now back 2-1/2 somersault pike, 3.0 degree of difficulty. The score that divers would be shooting for, the target score to be in the top 12, would be 370 points. Ferguson's score right now is 306.
We'll keep that 370 point total in mind. That's our prediction here for the top 6 divers.
That's for the top 12.
I'm sorry, the top 12. I don't think there's a problem with him scoring 55 points on the dive to make him into the top 12. To make him in the top 6, he needs a lot more than that. Joachim Anderson just did a very nice back 2.5 somersault pike. You can see he's smiling. He's happy about that. Anytime 7s or above on the back or reverse 2.5 pike, that's a good dive. That's a hit.
And 376 may in fact put him into the final rounds at the Olympic Games.
Quite an accomplishment for anybody.
Dario De Fazio from Venezuela. Reverse 1.5 somersault, 3.5 twist free, a 3.3 degree of difficulty.
Well, his feet came apart a little bit in the air. ducksy move on the way up. We're going to see a lot of these dives. He finishes the dive board level, and watch what happens. He misses his hands. He grabs them early, and then they let go as he goes in the water.
And the scores, 5s and 6s, 332.43. That should not put him in the finals. Now, Kent Ferguson, his final opportunity to not only make the finals, but hopefully get into the top 6, at least from his perspective, the reverse 1 1/2 somersault, 3 1/2 twists.
He's not going to receive 8 1/2s on that dive. It just wasn't a good enough hurdle. He was clunky on the end of the board. I heard his feet hit the end of the diving board. He wasn't smooth up over the board. I think he's battling a case of nerves and tightness today. He's going to make the finals, but this is not one of his better reverse 3 1/2 twisters. It's still a good dive. This is his forte. This dive he can receive 9s on.
374.22. So he would be just 4 points above what we estimate would be the baseline at 12th place of 370 points. David Bedard now from Canada. Reverse 1 1/2 somersault, 3 1/2 twist. Same dive.
Now that was an example of a wonderful takeoff. A very soft takeoff from the end of the diving board. I didn't hear the board. It wasn't noisy because he points his toes into the board and extends right up over it. He misses the entry just a little bit. This dive could have gone down for 8s and above, but he just misses that entry. If he would stretch out of that, make himself longer going through the water, he'd receive 8.
372.54. So it's getting very crowded in that 370 to 375 range, and we'll just have to wait and see how these shake out. Evan Stewart now.
This is an inward 2 1/2 somersault pike. It's only 3.0. 3.0 degree of difficulty. He's got a big lift for a 17-year-old. He's pretty tough on himself. I know that he wasn't happy about his last dive, his forward 3 1/2, but this young man is doing a great job by doing these dives, and he's very capable. He's not doing dives that he can't do, which is very impressive.
And the scores are 6s, 345.87. That is probably not enough to be in the finals for the Zimbabwe diver Evan Stewart. Now Trifonov from Bulgaria, his final dive, an inward 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
I think that excessive rocking is indicative of not being too clued in on what the judges are looking for, because they're going to deduct for that. They've been told that excessive rocking before you leave the diving board should be a half a point deduction. He doesn't crow hop, he doesn't pick his feet up and bounce the board before he leaves them, but he is rocking and getting some advantage from that. That's why those scores are 6s and not 6 1/2 and all 7s.
Right, and 320 will not make it into the finals either. Edwin Yenyons, however, does have an opportunity to be in the finals, and he's going to do his forward 2 1/2 somersault with 1 twist, 2.8 degree of difficulty.
Edwin does a beautiful 2 1/2 somersault with 1 twist. It's only a 2.8 degree of difficulty. I feel like he could do a more difficult twister, and I guess he does do a reverse 3 1/2 twister. He did that earlier, but this is a low degree of difficulty for somebody that is as strong as Edwin Yenyons and a world champion. It is beautiful.
7 1/2 and 8s, 383.13. He definitely is in the finals. He was 7th after the previous round, so we will see him in the Olympic final on those 3 meters. Now, the favorite here in Spain, Jimmy Gill. Jimmy Gill is going to do his final dive with reverse 1 1/2 somersault, 3 1/2 twist. 3.3 is the degree of difficulty.
Jimmy was waiting for the referee to blow the whistle, indicating that he's free to go ahead and commence his dive. Good start on the dive. Nice stand up. It's a reverse spinning dive. It can be frightening for the diver at times, but he really is gutsy. Stands right up over the end of the diving board. The distance is good. Just needs a little more confidence in this entry. He needs to know that he can drill the dive. He can go in the water cleanly, but just grab his hands and stretch. That's the best part about the dive. He steps out of the hurdle, swings his arms right up over his head, starts that twist. See, the head position was nice and neutral. That allows him to be straight in the twist. Come around and look at the water. Needs a grab, needs a rip on the end.
Well, a valiant try here from the Spaniard, 336 points, will not find him in the finals of the Olympic Games here in Barcelona. Ton Leonda, though, is the leader. He owns that by 26 points over second place, so he's diving very much in control here.
That's an interesting dive. It's a 3.2 degree of difficulty, and I think it should probably be higher than that.
Certainly.
That's a forward 2 1/2 somersault with 2 twists. And this is surely as difficult as a reverse 1 1/2 with 3 1/2 twists, and yet it's a lower degree of difficulty. He lost his speed in the twist a little bit. They came apart, but he got them back together as he entered into the water, not only vertically, but very cleanly. He really put the dive away, and he just has that one little flaw. I still think he's going to receive 8s on the dive because he's so capable of making the dive easily and stretching out. Not a problem.
Scores from the judges, 2 8s. The rest 7 7 1/2, 426.39, and he is, as they say in golf, the leader in the clubhouse after the qualifying rounds. Dimitri Sautin now, who was 11th after the previous round, is doing the reverse 1 1/2 somersault, 3 1/2 twists.
There's a dive I was just talking about that carries that 1/10 higher degree of difficulty than the dive Tom Leonda just did. A lot of the men are doing that dive, whereas not very many people can do a forward 2 1/2 somersault with 2 twists. But I guess I won't be able to do anything about that at this meet. I can't change those degrees of difficulty, so what am I dwelling on it for, Steve? I don't know. This is a nice dive. He could point his toes better on the end. I think he has a good toe point, but he didn't utilize it when he went in the water.
384.42. He moves ahead of Kent Ferguson. Kozlowski from Poland now. His final dive is a forward 2 1/2 somersaults with 1 twist, 2.8 degree of difficulty.
Acknowledge this diver. He's 17 years old and he's not experienced. And he's really struggled with doing these optional dives today, but everybody appreciates somebody that tries very hard, and he certainly has. This 2 1/2 somersault with 1 twist is a broken position. He bent his knees when he came around to look at the water, and that's why he received that 2 1/2 from the Canadian judge. He shouldn't bend his knees there.
Mark Rourke now. He was 5th after the 6th round. He's doing a forward 2 1/2 somersault with 1 twist, 1 less than Ton Leonda.
Mark Rourke did a beautiful job today. He didn't miss a dive. I talked about him earlier saying that he's not going to get 9s on any dive. And he'll struggle to get 8s, but he'll do a lot of dives in the 7, 7.5 range. And that'll put him close to the top 6 today, if not definitely in there. It's a nice job. It's a nice consistent list that he did. He's a little bit splashy as he goes in the water there, but good dive.
379.32 will definitely see him in the Olympic final tomorrow. Now Craig Vaughan from South Africa, forward 3 1/2 somersault,
Nicky had his head down as he took off from the diving board. Let's see if we can see where he's looking. He looks down at the water just a little bit early. He tried to look up, but he started to somersault more with his head than his arms. He needs to use his leverage a little bit more in order to be able to stretch out of that on the bottom, do a good entry.
The scores, 5.5 and 6s, 297. Also a score that will not advance him into the finals. Christian Styron now, next diver. He's doing the inward 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
Has been very steady today. He hasn't done a lot of dives for 7s or above, but he's always been in the 6, 6.5, close to 7 range, some dives for 7s. And I think if he tightened up his form a little bit more, pointed his toes and kept his knees straight, he could receive those 7s all the time and maybe even get some 8s every now and then.
This diver now, Nicky Stajkovic. He's doing the inward 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
Nicky's been struggling, and I think that strep throat has taken a bit of a toll on him. This inward 2 1/2 somersault pike is sort of vertical. He needs to get those arms going down a lot sooner. Now, he knows that. He was a graduate of Indiana University, and Hobie Billingsley is a great teacher of mechanics, and Nicky knows you have to throw your arms narrow and early to make the inward 2 1/2 somersault pike.
There you see the scores for Nicky, 5.5. 33-year-old who lives in Albuquerque is making his 5th appearance at the Olympic Games. Jan Hempel is making his 2nd appearance at the Olympic Games, 289 points at this juncture. He's going to do a back 1 1/2 somersault with 3 1/2 twists, 3.2 degree of difficulty.
Oh, he has a really pretty twisting position. This was one of the best dives he did. I don't think his ankle affected him as much on this one. He kept his balance pretty well, and he really uses his arms more to start the somersault and doesn't have to push quite as much. Of course, he has to jump off the diving board, but the ankle, I think, has affected him negatively today, although he is certainly better known for his platform diving.
Jorge Mondragon now, reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0 degree of difficulty. He was 8th after the previous round and ahead of Ken Ferguson.
Mondragon's going to stay ahead of Kent Ferguson. He had a little trouble with the takeoff. He jumped out too far in the middle of the diving well, but it wasn't out so far that he's going to receive below 6.5s on the dive. He really drills the entry. He's obviously got his head in the right place here. He's looking at the water as he comes around on the 2 1/2 somersault. Then he looks back to spot the water to line up. Pretty good job at stopping that dive. You see it, he stretch his feet towards the end of the diving board, taking off, lands right on the end. That's nice. Has his head down, taking off. He needs to look at the water on that dive, taking off. On reverse spinning dives, you do keep your head down, taking off. On forward spinning dives, you don't.
7.5 and 8s, 384. He will definitely be in the finals of the Olympic Games on men's 3-meter. Alexei Kogalev now, reverse 1 1/2 somersault, 2 1/2 twist free position.
That dive was beautiful. It was up above the diving board, very high, nice and tight with his legs and feet. Maybe a tiny over twist as he went in the water. Still, I think that's going to be in the 7s, 7 and above range because look how high he is up above the board. Squares out way above the diving board. 3 feet above the board when he squares out, but I did see a little turn as he went in the water. The judges on one side of the pool may see that.
Right, and indeed they did. 323.46 points should not be enough for him to advance to the finals. Richter Jürgen now from Austria. Inward 2 1/2 somersault pike 3.0.
Jürgen needs to jump up above the diving board more on this dive in order to complete the somersaults higher and stretch out to rip the entry. Just doesn't have a lot of time to grab his hands and stretch. Knees are bent. Again, he's flattening his feet. We saw that out of him previously. Really needs to work on his form a little bit. He has potential to do really nice dives. He's in the 6, 6.5 range already. Wouldn't take him much to get there.
336.78. Respectable scores, although not enough to make the finals. Now, Lorenzini from Italy. He was 10th after the previous round, was ahead of Ferguson.
He's definitely in the ball game here. He didn't miss many dives at all, and this is one of his best dives. He makes it look easy. It's a reverse 1 1/2 somersault, a 3 1/2 twist. Jumps up above the diving board, wraps up the twist. Some nice, neat package here. Comes out, looks at the board, squares, goes in the water without a lot of splash. Grabs his hands very well there.
375 moves him ahead of Kent Ferguson, who is currently in 8th place. As we move now to Fernando Platas, who was 17th, he needs 8.5s and 9s on this dive, an inward 2 1/2 somersault pike if he wants to be in the finals.
This is a lot of pressure for Fernando just to get in the finals. His countryman is already in, Jorge Mondragon.
I don't think so.
No, I don't either, Steve. The dive didn't rotate far enough for him to rip the entry. It's just a standard now. To go in the water vertically is necessary, and he's a little short of vertical, and also to clean up the entry to get those scores above 8. That's more like 6.5, 7.
And there are the scores, 355.47, also off the pace. Yamagishi now from Japan. His final dive will be a back 2 1/2 somersault pike. He was 21st and is mathematically pretty much eliminated from being a finalist.
He does a nice last dive, the qualifying round, although he's not going to be in the finals. He ended up very nicely. He's got strength. He's got nice form, legs and feet. This back 2 1/2 somersault pike is a good dive for him because he can show his nice lines, his speed and stretch. Just needs to clean that entry up a bit. Didn't quite going vertically. The rule book does say that the dive should end up vertical, and of course with toes pointed and legs stretched.
Duvernay doing his last dive in the qualifying round. Duvernay from France, the reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike.
Duvernay is a good diver, and he has an arch in his back on almost every dive he does. If he could get rid of this arch, the arch is taking off here. See him bend his knees in the pike position. Shouldn't do that.
Marco from the unified team doing the forward 1 and 1/2 somersault with 3 twists. He was in 4th place after the previous round.
That's a nice triple twisting 1.5. I've seen him do it better than that. He actually does that dive on the 1-meter springboard, which is very, very difficult. So it makes it a pretty easy dive for him on the 3-meter. I'm not so sure he doesn't have to hold back a little bit not to go over. And the proof here is that he is moving over on this dive. He has trouble controlling that somersault, so a little bit of over twist. He's still going to be somewhere in the top 6, I believe, after his triple twisting 1.5 here, because it's a 2.9 degree of difficulty, and it's a clean dive. You can do it better. Certainly wasn't a blow.
7s, 388.26, and we'll have to wait and see exactly where he is, but probably in the top 6, maybe 4th or 5th. Kita Kaneto now from Japan, inward 2 and 1/2 somersault pike, 3.0.
Put his head way down, went way past vertical on this dive. He might have been trying too hard. We see him take off, and look at his head position. Goes right down. It's going to move him too close to the diving board. I think he thought he was going to hit his feet on the board, so he didn't really want to stretch out of the dive, and he goes way over on his back.
295.74 for Kaneto. Ferguson also has to look behind him at divers, and this is one of them. Bob Morgan from Great Britain was 15th. He has the possibility of going beyond Ferguson. Ferguson's score 374.22. This is a reverse 1.5 somersault, 3.5 twist, 3.3 degree of difficulty.
Bob had a little trouble with that dive. He went out too far from the diving board. He really didn't make the dive very easily. So let's see what the judges are going to do with this. It's going to be close between he and Kemp.
7.5 from the judges would move him ahead of Ferguson.
I don't know. I don't think this should receive 7.5. 6.5, 7 maybe. But he's moving out. He's having trouble completing the rotations. We see his feet flexed and flat before he squares out of the dive. I don't know.
Nope, did not happen. 366.66. Again, only the top 12 divers from today's contest will dive in the Olympic final tomorrow. Simon McCormick would like to be one of those divers from Australia. He is 16th presently. He's doing the back 1 and 1/2 somersault with 3 and 1/2 twist, 3.2 degree of difficulty. To be in the top 12, he would need 8 8.5s, and that would take him ahead of Ferguson.
That's a very tall order for a back 1.5 to 3.5 twist. Well, that was a very nice dive, though.
Will it get 8
I
8.5?
could see it getting 7.5, 8. No, I don't think it's going to get 8.5. And the reason is he went past vertical. He didn't really stretch out for the entry as well as he could. But this is a very well executed back 3.5 twist. Reaches underneath him just a little bit too much and over rotates. No, I don't think it's going to get 8.5.
Okay.
In fact, it may not even get 8.
And indeed it did not. 6s and 7.5s at the high score, 358.06. The Aussie, unfortunately for Australia, will not be participating in the finals this year, the Olympic Games. Mark Lindsay, however, has an excellent opportunity to position himself for a medal. Reverse 1 and 1/2 somersault, 3 and 1/2 twist.
Very nice way to end up. Mark Lindsay did a spectacular reverse 1.5 somersault with 3.5 twist. That's the best one that's been done so far. The best thing about this is jump up over the diving board. This shows a lot of courage. He can see where the diving board is in his twist, and he's aware that he's right up over it. Doesn't scare him at all. He drills the entry, needs a little more toe point. He's a contender. No doubt in my mind. His takeoff is beautiful. Arms up over his head. You see him looking. He uses his visual references wonderfully. Mark has done a good job today.
A good job indeed, and look at those scores. 9, 8.5, 409.11. He is just behind Tom Leonda and is sitting in second place and will probably finish there.
And he said he didn't come here to get second place. He wants to win.
But that's
He
in
wants
the
to win
finals.
bad tomorrow.
Lon Way, one of the divers who could bump Ferguson out of the finals. He would need 8.5 and 9s to do it on that dive. What do you think?
8.5, yes. 9.
It's going to be close?
I wouldn't give it a 9.
No?
I would go 8.5 on the dive. And the reason I wouldn't give it a 9 is because he's got his feet crossed as he comes out of that twist. And they're crossed as he goes in the water. So I would not give it a 9.
Well, look at those scores. 369.09. Kent Ferguson is in the finals. Big sigh of relief from Kent Ferguson, I'm sure, who is very aware of what the situation is out here today. Now, Albin Kielot from Germany, reverse 2 1/2 somersault pike 3.0.
Alvin Keelot will not receive 9. I think that's what he needed to pull ahead of Mark Lindsay.
That's right.
But to see from him grabbing his back, that hurt his back a little bit. There's that arch coming off the diving board. And when your feet are on the board and your body is arching, it certainly puts a lot of stress on your lower back. There's an arch again going in the water, and he came out and he rubbed his back, and I know that hurts. You can tell just from the angle of takeoff here. Back then. Whoa. So many divers have bad backs, and you really have to get away from arching on takeoffs like that.
392.10. He will be in the third position presently with Michael Murphy, the final diver in the contest, doing his reverse 1 1/2 somersault 3 1/2 twist. The Australian is currently in 6th place.
Well, he did a beautiful job today. That reverse 3 1/2 twister is not quite complete. He needed to stretch out and show the square position. His arms need to come out into the square position, the lateral position from the body as he squares out of the dive. The twist is nice. It's up over the diving board. His feet are together. There's the square. He needs to show that a little bit longer, that cross position with his arms, and the dive would rotate a little further instead of being short of vertical. But he's really terrific on this takeoff.
And the scores for this dive do in fact put him in the finals. And he had some company. Tom Leonda from China, number 1 after the qualifying rounds, followed by Mark Lindsay. Albin Kielot from Germany is 3rd. Valery Stetsenko from the unified team is 4th. Mondragon from Mexico 5th. Soughton from the unified team 6th. Young Jans from Holland is 7th. Michael Murphy from Australia is 8th. And we're happy to say that Kent Ferguson, who has been diving erratically at best, winds up 12th. So he does in fact make the finals in an unusual turn of events, the world champion, who everyone had expected to be higher in the finals, Cynthia.
There's nothing I can say except that it looked like a case of nerves to me, Steve. I think he put some pressure on himself somewhere along the line. I talked to his coach. He said he had been very steady. He had been working out well. So the fact that this is his first Olympic Games and he is the world champion may have played a part in those nerves.
Well, this is the exceptional dives are being done by these divers in the preliminaries. They will also be done in the finals. And we want you to make sure and join us because it will be a battle between Tom Leonda and Mark Lindsay of the United States, who finished 2nd in these qualifying rounds. They are diving in position and will be diving again tomorrow, and we hope that you join us. So for my broadcast partner, Cynthia Potter, and I'm Steve McFarland, we hope as you look through the remaining divers in the field of 32 who dived today that you enjoyed the contest as much as we did. We look forward to exceptional diving in the finals because the Olympic gold medal will be determined tomorrow between the top divers in the world on men's springboard. Tom Leonda, Mark Lindsay, Alvin Keelock, Valerie Stitsenko. Once again, join us tomorrow for more Olympic diving. The gold medal, the bronze medal will all be awarded tomorrow. Join us then.
Everybody, and welcome to our Triple Cast studio. I'm Gail Gardner along with Dan Hicks. Because the men's springboard diving ended a little early, we will be sending you out to tennis in just a couple of minutes and then later on to the women's gymnastics team final. But right